Hello, everybody, and welcome to the giant conversation that is Topic Talks. And today, none of my usual people are here, so I called in a person who hasn't been on the show in a while. It's Michaela. Say hi, Michaela.
Hello, everyone.
Michaela is the one you guys may have remembered her from last week. She sent in a shout out, and it was actually pretty good. I got it, and I got all excited. I'm like, this is sweet.
Good, good. I tried my best.
It sounded really, really good.
Good. My friend has a whole setup at his home, and so I decided to take advantage of that just to send a clip to you. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
That's kind of cool. Well, you have another friend that has a whole setup at his house.
Yep.
So, what have you been up to?
It has been incredibly busy with this sporadic hot and cold weather, and I don't know what to do with it. I never know if I want to go to the park or stay home because it's raining.
I've been to the beach only once.
Really? Only once?
Only once. It's been a weird summer.
I haven't been to a beach. I've been to some lakes, but I haven't actually been to the bigger lakes.
I went to a beach, and I did it once, and I got sunburned like a lobster, and it hurt for like a week, and then I peeled, which was gross, and now I'm tan.
Yep.
So that was great. But okay, well, thank you for joining me. Why don't we get started on our news? You read this first one and you thought it was pretty cool. I thought this would be a cool story to kick off our show with. So Miranda Lambert is once again engaged, and no, it is not to her Hollywood boyfriend. It is to I think it was a 6-year-old. Do you remember?
That sounds about right.
6-year-old. I think he got a backstage pass, and there's a picture of him like getting down on one knee and opening up a ring box. It was really cute.
Doing it all proper.
Yeah, he was like on one knee and everything. And Miranda, yeah, I was gonna say Miranda said, I said yes, but he has to wait 25 years. And so that was kind of funny. She tweeted a picture about it, and she said the sweetest boy, Sebastian, is the little gentleman. Hashtag pink ring, hashtag proposal, hashtag make my day, hashtag jersey, hashtag spread the love to her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty. I like when they do stuff like that. Like someone will come up and they'll get a picture of it and they'll post it and.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like it when celebrities actually handle the press and handle fans they kind of just roll with it instead of being jerks like some of them do. I especially love celebrities that make funny poses when the paparazzi take pictures. Those are always entertaining.
Or when one celebrity who's kind of not as famous as the one that's being taken, they photobomb in the back.
Yep, those are always great. I've seen some pretty famous people photobomb lesser famous people just to give them the credit they deserve, kind of get their face out there even if it's a meme.
Well, it's a kind of a funny story, a little bit off track. So as you know, I'm going to Specs Howard, and I'm in my final marking period. And in our TV class, we basically have 2 projects. That's all we're doing this entire marking period is 2 projects, and it's a compilation of everything we've learned over the entire. So basically, we have to put 2 video packages together. So it's like it's a newsroom, and we have to put together, like those clips that you see where they've got like the person standing up and saying, "I am here," and blah 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 blah. Then they play like the little package, and then they'll say, "That was me with whatever news, signing off."
Yep.
So we have to make those, and we have to make 2. We have to make a sports and an entertainment. Okay. Well, my group, we got to pick our groups. My group decided to do the Arts Beats and Eats Festival in Royal Oak.
Ooh.
It was really cool.
Like fun.
It was really cool. We didn't get as much footage as I would have liked to, but I made it work. Because I was the editor. We had a camera guy, a producer. We also had a grip.
Really?
Yep, we had a grip. Anyway, so I was going through the footage today, and I just there's this one shot that the camera guy did of just walking down a street. And I originally wasn't going to use it because it was kind of shaky, and I'm like, but we didn't have enough footage, so I'm like, well, we'll throw it in there. So I was watching it just to try to pick a good spot where it wasn't that shaky. And I just see this kid that starts to walk by, and he like jumps in front of the camera, and then stands back normal and walks away. And I didn't even notice it when we were filming it.
That's subtle.
And it was kind of really subtle because we were filming and I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
And then I went through that footage once already and didn't see it. So it took me 3 times before I realized what this kid did. He didn't make it in the film, but still.
Aww. That's the real clincher.
but no, it's kind of funny to see. There's actually a picture I have, and I think this is a pretty sweet photo bomb. My friend
Mhm.
his girlfriend had gotten a new car. It was a Buick, and there was a picture of her standing in front of it, and I just happened to be standing in the background,
Mhm.
and they didn't realize it, and so I photo bombed. Well, then once I knew that, they were trying to get me out of it, and it was like a picture of her like leaning up against her car trying to block me out of it. And if you look closely in the picture, underneath her arm, through the both windows, you can see
Oh
my face.
no, that's creepy.
But it was like I was trying to see if I could actually get a good photo bomb, and it turned out fantastic. And I mean, they didn't even know that I was trying to.
Yeah.
I'm like, here, I'll get down behind the car, and then I just put my face up against the window.
Excellent. Yeah.
So
That's
photo
great.
bombs can be really cool. They can also get your name out there. So I really do love when
Yeah.
celebrities do that.
Yep. Celebrities have a lot of. I mean, for example, my sister went to Las Vegas for her birthday. Towards
Lucky.
the end of. I know. Towards the end of August. I'm pretty jealous too. And she met Nicolas Cage. Well,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, in the morning, Nicolas Cage was completely drunk. Very drunk. You can tell in his picture he is not all there mentally. And I felt so bad. It's like you have this persona to keep up, and I understand it's not easy all the time, but if you run into a fan and you're totally far gone and it's early in the morning, there's another story to be told there, and those are always such disappointing encounters. So I love it when somebody rolls with the punches a little bit and is like, oh, this is unexpected, and 6-year-old boy's proposing to me. That's interesting. He must have rehearsed this. Somebody must have told him how to do it, or he's seen it a few times. So.
Well, and I love all the memes that came out about Leonardo DiCaprio, how he didn't get what was it? He didn't get an Oscar.
Yep. Right
And
before
then
the awards. Yep.
and then after he did, there were still more memes about him, but it was about him
Mhm.
eating Girl Scout cookies. Did you see that one?
I have seen some of those. It's pretty funny.
It was like, what did it say? I want to look at something like Leonardo DiCaprio looks at Girl Scout cookies, and
I want to
there's
look at my I want to like Leonardo DiCaprio looks at his Oscar. I look at Girl Scout cookies and stuff like along those lines.
it,
Yeah.
it was something like that, but he was looking at Girl Scout cookies like with a really weird face, because that's when Chris Rock sent his daughter's Girl Scout troop
Oh really?
through the aisles of the Oscars to try to sell Girl Scout cookies.
Man.
So all the celebrities, I mean, and some people made a big fuss about that, like, that's not cool. I think it's cool. Like,
Yeah,
if
why
I
not?
was there, I would have bought, like,
Just don't buy any if you don't want any.
right, if it's that
But
big of a deal.
Speaking of celebrities' children, did you know? So
No.
Korn, the lead singer of Korn, Jonathan Davis, has 3 children, right? And so he started off with pretty normal naming scheme, where his first son was named Nathan. His second son is named Zeppelin. Still a pretty cool name, a little obscure, kind of a little bit odd, but you can justify that by saying your dad's a metal artist.
Hmm.
His third son is named Pirate. That
so,
poor kid.
so he was sober when he was naming the first kid.
Well, it was a different
Little-
wife on the last 2, I believe.
I was gonna say, so then they were probably both drunk or he was drunk when the second kid was born.
I mean, Zeppelin, I can see being justifiable, but Pirate is, that kid's gonna have a tougher time.
Hey, I was talking to a teacher and she knew a girl named Da Cheese.
Oh,
D-A
no.
Cheese. Yes.
Why?
I don't know. And then there was another one, and this was an English teacher I was talking to,
Oh, jeez.
and she said that there was this girl whose name was she read it out loud, and she read it Dynasty because that's how it was spelled.
Oh, no.
It was Dynasty. She's like, that's
That's
not
not
what
how
it
you
says.
spell.
That's not how you spell it.
Oh, no, a misspelled name. I wonder if that happens. Somebody misspells their child's name and doesn't know it.
I wonder if sometimes it's just the fact that they're trying to make the name unique, so they add letters in or take letters out or spell it a weird way. Or
Yeah.
that is one thing that I really don't like, and it's especially popular with our generation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the parents are like, "Oh, I'm gonna name something unique," and then you get all these weird names.
I mean, look at my name. It wasn't supposed to have a Y in there.
Really?
Yeah, no, my name is supposed to be Michael with an A at the end.
Huh?
Doesn't look anything like that.
No, there is a Y.
Yep. Yeah, but you can have a lot of fun with kids' names. Just don't make it scarring torture for their
Right.
childhood.
See, but I feel like some people have a problem with naming anything. Like, look at the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah.
It's the Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and the Furious, and then that was 3. Then Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, then
That one was good.
Fast and the Furious 4,
Hmm.
and then it was Fast 5,
Mhm.
Furious. No, it was Furious 7. What was
Oh, I don't remember the name
5,
for that one.
6? It was Fast and Furious 6, I think. And then it was Fast 5. Or no, Furious 7.
They need different play on words or to just keep it the same through the whole
I
series.
was gonna say, and then the weird part about it is, like, okay, so you have 1, which is
Mhm.
Fast and the Furious, then you've got 2. Well, you have to take 3 and move it to after 6, in between 6 and 7,
The whole, yeah.
because that's how it goes.
That's
But yet,
confusing.
when they made the book, like when they made the movies, they put numbers on the spine. So
Ah,
I have the entire series, and I have to have it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
for
But that's
organization.
the wrong order.
Oh, that's like the Narnia books. If you
Are they
don't
really?
read The Magician's Nephew first, then you don't understand where all of it began. And if you do, if you read it in the order of which it was intended versus the order of which all of Hollywood has decided is the order that they're going to do it, then you don't get a lot of the backstory, and you end up learning things afterwards that just make everything make so much more sense.
Well, and it's kind of like the Da Vinci Code series.
Mm,
That started off with Angels and Demons, was supposed to be was the first book,
yeah.
and then the Da Vinci Code.
Mhm.
And actually, the thing that really makes me mad, because I really wanted to see this into a movie, is they skipped a book.
Yeah.
Because they're going, because how they did the movies is they did the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and they're skipping the Lost Symbol and going straight to Inferno.
Yep.
I thought the Lost Symbol would have been an awesome movie because it takes place here, like in Washington D.C.,
Mhm.
and talks about the Freemasons. It talks about secret tunnels under
Yeah.
D.C. and things like that. And I thought it'd be cool to bring it back to the U.S. for a movie because Inferno's back in a different,
Yeah.
God knows
I mean,
whatever country.
I live and breathe the History Channel. I love hearing about all of these secret things that people didn't know. Like the Mayan temples were built on the top of underground water recesses, these pools. I forget the actual technical name for it, but all of their groups and all of their temples
Mhm.
were built in compass locations from Chichen Itza.
Really?
And it's incredibly fascinating to hear about it. And then, of course, they talked about the sacrifices made because they found bones in some of them, and
Right,
it
right.
was incredibly fascinating stories. But if they just played up the history part, you can make history interesting. It's not that hard.
Well, and it's kind of like, okay, you look at National Treasure, had a lot of history in it,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and those are some of my favorite movies. Speaking of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
But then you also have like the Da Vinci Code.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Brown did a lot of research
Mm-hmm.
when he wrote those books, and a lot of it, some of it's fictional, but there are a lot of facts hidden in. Like a lot of the clues are actual things. They're actual facts.
Or, I
Um,
mean, you can always stipulate. If you found something and this is a real thing, you can justify it. Say, okay, this was found here. We think it means this. This is our best guess.
Right.
The Freemasons are always an interesting group to investigate and
Well,
speculate about.
And the cool part about the Masons is in the Lost Symbol, because I haven't finished it. It's been like 5 years since I started this
Mhm.
book and haven't finished it. Yet I read half of it in a week. But they start talking about some of the secret rituals of the Masons, like to be inducted into a Mason. I'm trying to think of what the groups are called.
I forget.
And to be inducted into the Masons, you had to go into this room,
Mhm.
and it has a skull sitting on the table. I think it's like a quill with
There's
ink or
Mhm.
something like that, and there's like basically like
symbology, yeah.
just a whole bunch of symbology sitting on a table, and then you're stuck in that room until you. I'm trying to remember. You're stuck in that room for so long.
You have to make that oath, and you have to recite some things, and I forget all of the. They had a whole long list of rituals and things that
Yeah.
people were required to do, but it was if you make this oath, there are things you can and cannot do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like it is like even still today, like now it's still a lot of the the Masons. Some are a lot more relaxed. Some are not.
Mm-hmm. Depends on the group.
Yeah, some are still very traditional. But no matter what they are, they won't tell you about any of the rituals or any of the
Mhm.
ceremonies. Granted, you can look them up online, but nobody will say them. Will actually tell you.
At least they don't want to get traced back to having spilled the beans because that's one of their oaths.
Right. But I mean, it's still kind of cool because even to this day, because I have a friend who's a Mason and he's like, I can't
Nope.
tell you.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you can go online and look it up, but I'm we can't physically tell you. And I find that very interesting, and especially since you look back and so most of our founding fathers were Freemasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look into, some of the architecture that we have from a long time ago, and there's, Masonic symbols and all those.
Symbology was a really big deal, especially in early architecture and colonial times, and through our entire history.
But no, anyway, I just, it really bugs me how Hollywood feels like they have to put things in a certain order when they already have a legitimate order. Why not just leave it at that?
Yeah, not everything has to be chronological, but some of it makes sense. Yep.
And you need to leave it that way.
Exactly.
But we've gotten way, 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 way off topic. No, anyway, so it was really cool that this little boy did that, because, like I said, he got down on one knee and actually proposed, and she said it was so cute, but he has to wait 25 years.
Yeah, I wonder if he was as nervous as most people are when they propose. I wonder if he was shaking, because, you just can't say no at that point. If there's this little boy who's pouring his little heart out, if he really, really feels the need.
I was going to say, but it was cute. Like I said, there's a picture.
Yeah.
And it's got him, and he's actually got a little ring box. And
oh.
So, it was a pretty cool. So I thought that'd be a good first story to start off with.
Lighthearted, yeah.
It is. Now, why don't we get into the technical side? I know Michaela's got some stuff that she wants to talk about.
All right, yeah. So there's been a lot of hubbub about the Samsung Note. Yes, hubbub. The Samsung Note 7 exploding batteries. So the Korean manufacturer Samsung has issued a recall on all these devices after reports of exploding batteries. Now, most of these reports came from devices that had batteries from one of their Korean manufacturers. This is not the same manufacturer that supplied batteries to the US market. But regardless of that, a certain man claimed that his phone was charging his car and it blew up. And it melted a good portion of his car, caught his house on fire, and burned his whole house down. Now, even though he's currently under investigation for attempted insurance fraud, people still believe this story, even though the phone is clearly, there is not enough in a phone to do that kind of massive damage. At all. It is so far-fetched, and yet people are still, it's fear-mongering. It has sparked this issue, and there are questions of whether or not Samsung is going to end up paying damages anyway, because after this story, and after Samsung issued an email to all people who had purchased the phone and pre-ordered the phone, you need to stop using your devices immediately. We will replace it as soon as the adjustments have been made, and all of this other stuff. They are really addressing this issue. They're very forthcoming in all of it. But the government, the U.S. government, decided to put a no-fly status on this phone. You are not allowed to take it on airplanes because of fear-mongering stories like this. And until further investigation can exonerate this phone, you can't take your Note 7 on a phone. Which I think personally is
on a plane?
Excuse me, yes, you're right. You can't take it on a plane. You can take your phone on the plane, which used to be an issue way back when, but in this day and age, it's so surprising that they would do that. Especially when this is a very far-fetched story. But regardless, there are still justifiable stories that when charging the battery, the chemicals in the battery end up making it catch on fire, is basically what happens. And that fire, if you have drywall or something nearby that can easily catch on fire, can cause a lot of damage. But it is not Samsung's fault, necessarily. It is the chemical compound in their battery manufacturer. Now, that being said, this is their device. They do need to own it, and they absolutely are. And I am incredibly impressed with their customer service.
Right.
However, they released this phone a week and a half before the new iPhone 7 came out. They were trying to get ahead, and now they have fallen flat on their face because everyone is laughing at them. They issued a recall, and boom. You know what didn't have a recall? The new iPhone 7, and that, man, Apple is eating it up. They love that their biggest competitor is not doing so hot right now, and their phones are currently on a no-fly list.
I was gonna say, but you know what's funny? Even though they did fall flat on their face, Apple still has years to catch up.
Yep.
Because every new idea they've had, and I joke quite a bit. about how I could some of their commercials you can literally take. I could put a voiceover over going, like those funny. Have you ever
Oh,
seen those
yes.
ones where they'll like take a product, they'll take the audio off of it, and they'll put a new voiceover on it?
Mm-hmm.
I could do that to most Apple
Very easily.
commercials because most of the stuff that they're advertising, Samsung has already come up with, or somebody has already come up with.
But some of their fan base don't know that because they're such diehard fans. So when they talked about some of their watches, they talked about how some of this brush nickel isn't any brush nickel. It's our specially crafted brush nickel, which really it's just the same as all the other manufacturers use because they're coming from the exact same plants.
Oh yeah.
But you notice these things that they're doing, they're going to invent curved displays soon. They're going to invent waterproofing technology, things we've already seen from other device manufacturers.
I was going to say that,
Yeah.
let's see, I have the Galaxy S7,
Mm-hmm.
and it is water resistant.
Yeah.
And the
No,
new,
that hasn't been invented yet. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was going to say, the new
That's gonna be what,
Apple
iPhone 8?
device
Yeah.
is all brand new, waterproof, never been done before.
The watches. Now, I have to give them some credit where it's due. The watches, which are much smaller and much easier to waterproof, are waterproof up to a depth of 5 meters, which is impressive. But one of the things that they claimed is that they claimed their watch is the #1 best-selling watch in
Not
the
at all.
world, which is not even remotely true.
Not at
First of all, Rolex is clearly #1 by quite a league, but it's not. It's a smartwatch. It's not even a regular watch, so it's not even in the same marketplace, and they're claiming that.
And then even then, I'm pretty sure Samsung still has them beat because didn't the Samsung Gear come out before?
These numbers might be true in the U.S. market, but if you look at China, which has 1.3 billion people, and the United States only has 300,000 people,
Right.
there's no way it is #1.
What?
Or India, which also has 1.3 billion people. We are
Right.
all of the world's population is not in the United States, and people for some reason keep forgetting that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
But one of the amazing things that they launched with this new iPhone 7, they shocked a lot of people because they removed the audio jack.
Oh, that. Okay, so I was talking
Mhm.
to some guys at the Sprint store, and there was some confusion. So
Mm-hmm.
they told me that it came with a set of headphones.
It does.
Well,
Wireless headphones.
my girlfriend. Well, it came with a set of headphones, but what I heard is it just came with a set of headphones that plugged into the charging port. What it actually is it comes with a wireless set of headphones and a jack, like
An audio lightning converter
it's a
that they
converter.
manufacture. So what happens is they took out the audio jack, and how they phrased it is, it took courage to remove the audio jack. That is exactly what they said in their speech.
It was stupid.
Well, here's the most amazing part is now if you want that audio jack, you have to get the lightning port to audio cable converter, which means you can't charge your phone and use regular quote unquote cheap headphones to listen to your music. And the wireless headphones that they provide you only have a battery life of 5 hours until you have to recharge them. Who listens to music for only 5 hours?
I listened to it for a lot more than 5 hours.
Yeah, I ran through my 48-hour Pandora mobile stuff in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Apple, like, everybody's like, oh, Apple's on top. No, they're not. They haven't been since Steve Jobs died. And
Even then.
well, and I was gonna say even before that, they did have something, because they are very unique, they are very different. He was very innovative, but and I'll give him props. Like he had some awesome ideas. They used to be great products, but it's just
Well,
kind of like
They do have some
eh.
incredible closed circuit technology.
Yeah.
They do have some good technology. The problem is that when problems happen, they don't address them. So on one of their previous devices where they put the antennas, if you were holding your phone in the typical way you hold a phone, it would interfere with the signal. And so people were getting dropped signals. And things were happening, and it was bad. It was a bad placement.
Yeah.
They didn't fess up to that. Instead, you know what they were told? You're using your phone wrong. They didn't address the
Really?
issue. They didn't claim any responsibility. And there have been multiple cases like this. A very similar thing happened with the iPhone where the batteries were saying, oh, they're catching on fire. It was very few cases, just like the Samsung case where it's very few. But they just said, oh, you're charging your phone wrong. You're doing it wrong. Instead of taking accountability for it and solving the issue and say, oh, we're so sorry. we'll investigate this issue. We'll make sure it's not a serious issue that maybe you just got a defective device.
Right.
We'll talk to the manufacturers, which is them. They they don't manufacture this, but they design and they have access to all of those designs and can do that level of customer support in-house. Right. Unlike Samsung, which has to go to their Korean suppliers and conduct this investigation. They have to do a lot more work, and they are losing so much money on this recall, but they want to make sure that nobody gets hurt as a result of their devices.
Right.
And Apple just does not have the same level of customer support. They don't care. If you have any problems with their device, it's on you. And that's my main issue with a lot of Apple customer service and the way they handle their devices and requests and what other people say they want from it. Nobody was really asking you to remove the headphone jack, but you still wanted to make it that much thinner.
Right.
Which is their big thing. In the last 3 years.
It's not really that big of a thing. Like, if I have a really thin phone, I'll break it very quickly. Like, when I just got my new phone and I just got my new case in the mail, and I get a special series of cases. They're the UAG cases. They're made from military grade rubber, and I put the tempered glass on my phone because, I drop my phone a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes you can't help it. I mean, with tiny pockets these days, I drop my phone a few times.
I have huge pockets, and I still drop my phone a lot. Like, my pockets are massive. I have, like, the cargo shorts.
A first aid kit. Don't worry about it.
Right, yeah. First aid kit, frickin' scooter.
Yeah.
Pull out a whole bunch. But it's like, one thing that I don't like that Samsung's seeming to lean towards is they're trying to lean towards kind of like the closed phone.
Yep.
With the, I love the fact that I could pull out my battery. Like, for my old phone, I bought a spare battery and a battery charger.
Yep, those are always nice.
To where I just put the battery in the charger, plug it into the wall, it charges that, so then when I'm ready, or like if I was going to a concert or something.
Yeah, well, you know what? Everyone is moving towards closed phones, including Google, who has their Nexus series devices. So I don't know if you've heard of Project Ara,
No.
The big project that Google was doing for modular phones. They were going to allow you to piece together your phone so you could get that better, spend that money on that better camera, spend that money thing.
I did
They
hear about
shut down that project a couple weeks ago, I believe. I was so disappointed. And the reason they do that is because they're bringing a lot of these groups that work on individual pieces of the phones under the same roof, so that it's easier to manage and it's easier to make things move more fluidly, make all these departments work together. They want better core phones.
Right.
And I understand that. It just devastates me that modular phones are not going to be a thing because modularity is absolutely amazing.
Well, and like I said, like, one of the reasons I've loved Android for years is because, something's wrong with my Android phone. I pop off the back, pull the battery out, wait 5 seconds, put it back in, and everything's fine.
Yep.
Now you've got to freaking reset your phone by holding 2 buttons. Let it do a reset, and it's like, that takes a lot longer.
Yep.
And I don't know, like, I broke down and I got a new phone and can't get the back, so now I'm looking at buying a Samsung fast, brick, charging brick.
Yeah.
So the guy that I go to at Sprint is kind of looking into the different ones and seeing which ones are better than...
Yeah. Well, the problem with fast charging is a lot of these fast charging devices... They fast charge for 1 to 2 years really well, and then it depreciates quite significantly after that. They're hoping, beyond a doubt, that you are not going to have that phone for more than 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, which is mostly the case. And as soon as you start seeing those issues, you're probably going to end up trading in your phone. And if you liked that fast charging capability for those 1 to 2 to possibly 3 years, then you're going to buy another Samsung or you're going to buy another whatever that manufacturer was, and you're going to have positive thoughts. But you don't know that the reason why this was depreciating so much faster when it could have lasted you years before is because of that fast charging capability. It's a lot on the battery. It's a lot on the whole charging. But if you don't understand how that engineering works, and why would you spend the time to sit down and look at the engineering of a phone you're buying before you buy it? I mean, that's a lot of overhead to do before buying a phone. I just want my phone to work for what I need it to work for. And I love that it can handle all of the things that it can.
One thing that really made me mad is my last phone, the GPS just went kaput. And I went to Sprint and they're like, it's Samsung. They're having an issue, and I'm like, okay, is it just like it? Because it was just my phone, like my line of phones, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I looked online, and they're like, oh well, the the little
GPU?
piece in the phone.
Oh, the GPS.
That works your GPS sometimes unhooks itself or breaks
Oh.
off or things like that.
Mhm.
And I didn't bother. I'm like, I'm not gonna crack open my phone.
No,
That
not worth
voids
it.
warranties and all that jazz,
Yeah,
and
exactly. So
it's
you
not
could
worth it.
either deal with not having a phone for a certain period of time. They probably won't replace your phone without a fee, and so there's a lot of
Well,
issues with
they
trying to
told me it was
replace a phone.
a software issue or a hardware issue.
A hardware issue would make more sense.
Okay.
Software issue, they'd be able to fix. They'd be able to patch it. If it's a hardware issue, there's really nothing they can do about it.
Well, they said
Even
it was.
replacing your phone might not fix the core problem.
Well, there was one I guess that they were gonna work on an update or something for it,
Mhm.
and
But a hardware redesign is very difficult.
yeah, but it was just that's one of the reasons that I broke and got a new phone is well,
Mhm.
one, I got my grandma's smartphone.
Oh, excellent. How's that going over?
She just got it. She took a
Has she been
and
on Facebook yet?
she's been on Facebook for a while.
Well, I mean on her phone though.
Oh no,
Okay.
she took a Android class today, a class in Android
Oh,
phones.
there's a class? That's excellent.
There was a class at the senior center for Android phones. So
That's
she went and
brilliant.
took it. But that's why I got my phone is because it was buy one get one free, kind of deal. And I'm like, well, I need a new phone, and playing Pokemon Go where I jump all over the place is getting ridiculous. And as you might have known, I play a game that was like the grandfather to Pokemon Go, which is called Ingress,
Oh yes, I've heard of that.
which is very, very, very that uses your GPS a lot more accurately
Yeah.
than Pokemon Go does, because your guy will be like running in
Wasn't the
circles.
company bought so that they could
It's the same
improve
company.
that? Oh, it is the same company?
Same company.
You know, I heard rumors about something along those lines. Yeah.
It's
I don't
Nin-
play Pokemon Go though, so I haven't really kept up to date.
You should.
You know, I really can only handle so many video games in my life right now.
But this one is when you happen to be walking anywhere. Like you could be walking around work and headaches.
I know, but I also already work in augmented reality, so it'd be a little bit of an overlap. And although I could justify it pretty easily, it's so much of my time. But keeping on track of technology, do you want to talk about Android 7.0 Nougat on the Pixel C,
Okay.
the Google
So
device?
I know we were talking about this earlier. I still can't get over why they name everything after candy bars. I still feel like
All
it's the
right.
guy who comes up with the
So-
device, looks at what he's eating, and that's what the name of the.
I don't know the core reason why they did it. I just know for a long time, as long as I can remember, that's how it's been. So J was Jelly Bean, L was Lollipop, K was Kit Kat.
Did they start
M
with an
is
A?
Marshmallow. Yeah, I believe they did start with A. I know we're at Android 7.0. There haven't been 7 versions of Android. There's been 4.4. There's been, you can look them up. I know Froyo was one. Ice Cream Sandwich was one. And it might have started with Ice Cream Sandwich. I don't think so, but there have been a whole bunch of excellent ones. And it's a cute little thing to do. And if you have an Android device and you really know Android, you may know that for each one of these things they do, they hide a little Easter egg in your Android phone where you can play a little game or you can see a
didn't
little
know this.
animation based on the version you have. So for Marshmallow, they have one of the most difficult games, Easter egg games, I have
Wait a
ever
minute,
seen on a phone.
Wait a minute. How do you get to these Easter egg
So
games?
you go to the software version number in your settings list in your about devices, and you click on it repeatedly, and something will pop up. And in this case, if you have Marshmallow, a little M will pop up. You click on the M a few times, click and hold, something like that. A little game will pop up, and it'll have a score, and you have to get through these little pillars. You have to guide the little Marshmallow Man through these marshmallow pillars. It is so difficult. I absolutely can't get past the first one. I have a friend who's gotten to 4. I have no idea how he's done it. But Kit Kat had a little Kit Kat thing. Jelly Bean had a whole bunch of little jelly beans appear on the screen, and you could flood the screen. All of them have little Easter eggs like that. And it's just a kind of cute thing that gets you enamored with the software, and I think it was fun for the developers, and it was an easy way for them to keep track of it, because numbers are boring, let's face it.
Okay, I figured it out.
Yeah?
So Android 1.0 and
Mhm.
1.1 are unnamed.
Okay.
But starting with 1.5, it started with Cupcake.
Cupcake. So it started with C, so they skipped A and B because of the 2 versions pre-released.
So you've got Cupcake, Donut, and actually, I'm pretty sure that on their property. Oh yes. Okay. So on the on a property,
Mhm.
one of the Android properties, they've got the little Android dude
Yeah.
with a phone, and then they've got an actual for Donut, they've actually got like a donut statue.
Oh.
So for each one, they've got a little statue.
That
So
is
there's
amazing.
a giant cupcake, there's a donut,
I want
um,
these.
there's an eclair.
Oh yeah, Eclair was one. I remember working with that.
Froyo was one.
Yep.
Gingerbread was one.
Oh, that's one I keep forgetting.
That was actually two. That was 2.3 and 2.4.
Yeah, it had some problems. That was so Gingerbread is yeah. So what's the next one? 3.0.
3.0, 3.1, and 3.2 are Honeycomb.
Yeah. Okay. So everything after Honeycomb is on a redone version of Android. So Honeycomb and up is on a very old, unsupported version of Android. It's got a lot of like initial getting started stuff. After Honeycomb is when Android really hit the market and it really hit it hard. And I know because I've developed for all versions post Honeycomb.
Nice.
And there's just huge changes that have been made. And
so the statue for Honeycomb, it's got like the honeycomb, then it's got a bee, and there's a hole, two holes, and the little Android dude sticking out of one of the holes.
Oh, that's adorable.
So I'll post a link for some of this.
Statue. That's amazing.
They've got statues for all of them. Ice cream sandwich is a little Android dude in the shape. Or he looks like an ice cream sandwich, but he's in the shape of the little Android dude.
Oh, that's adorable.
Then they've got Jelly Bean, which looks like it's like a giant dome full of like a bunch of jelly beans, and then it's got like the arms and the legs of the Android guy. Then Kit Kat is literally it looks like
a giant Kit Kat.
It looks like a giant Kit Kat.
That looks delicious.
That is in the shape of, so it's got like the normal Kit Kat, and then it's got like the head, and then the arms, and then the legs.
I wonder how they got branding rights for Kit Kat, because you notice they've gotten more and more specific.
Well, and then it actually says Kit Kat on the statue.
Yeah, I think they might have had to make a deal with Kit Kat for that.
And then Lollipop has the little Android dude holding a lollipop.
So I have to be honest, I'm a little disappointed they went with marshmallow because it was supposed to be marmalade, but they decided that wasn't dessert-y enough, so they went with marshmallow. And also, apparently, people didn't know what marmalade was.
I don't know what marmalade is.
It's a sweet jam kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
actually
really
I think
good.
Marshmallow's
pretty good.
I think the only thing they could have come up with better is s'more.
Well, I mean, we're not to S yet, so
they could.
They might.
See, but if they'd only done chocolate instead of cupcake.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, right?
And then graham cracker instead of gingerbread.
Maybe, well, yeah.
Because then they could have done s'more, and it would have just combined the three. But
no,
cute. And then for marshmallow, for the marshmallow statue, they have the Android dude holding a giant marshmallow.
Yep.
But I actually just found this out. I literally just looked it up.
These
and
are
I think that's kind of cool. Because these are actual statues. Like, you can see people standing right by them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a kind of a culture thing. It's nice. You got to keep things interesting somehow, and that's one of the ways they chose to do it. And
and I think that they're all in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of looks like they're all together in like a line. So because the first one is donut.
I wonder what they're gonna do with some of the harder letters, like Z.
Is very.
Nougat is already a pretty on the fringe one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Nougat was a pretty creative one. Well, so they're to N. What would M be? Or they're to marshmallow.
M was marshmallow. So what's O gonna be? Probably Oreo. Oh, that'd be amazing if
that'd
they
be
did
really
Oreo.
good.
That'd be pretty good.
I would buy a pack of Oreos and start eating them to celebrate.
Oh yeah.
What else could they do for O? There's not too many candies.
Orange something. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's tough.
What are those things that taste like kind of taste like oranges, but they've got like ice cream in the middle? Creamsicles?
Yeah.
No, but that starts with a C.
Yep. I'll have to investigate sweets that start with O and find out, but
yes.
Speaking of nougat, Android 7.0, it has been nougat. I can't say it right, I know. I have a weird accent
okay.
when it comes to that word.
I'm just excited that it's nougat. It's kind of
most people don't know what it is.
Nougat is the stuff in a candy bar.
Yeah. Most people, what are they? I can't remember the brands.
Isn't it only in certain candy bars? Like, I think Snickers has it. Right?
I don't know.
Nougat and caramel?
Yeah. They have that one. Yep. But, yes. So, nougat is in the Pixel C. And I'm not talking about the jam. I'm talking about Android software is running on Google's hardware, the Pixel C, which is supposed to be, it is intended as a productivity device. So instead of going that extra mile and buying a laptop, you can buy a cheaper device that's a tablet that has one of those snap-up keyboards. And
kind of like the Surface?
Almost exactly like the Surface, except it's got a bit of hardware quirks. They very well designed this, where if you have the device closed and you want to know its battery life, you knock on the back of the device and it'll show you a strip of how high the battery life is of a light. It is incredibly convenient.
Really cool.
Yes. And it is very lightweight and it's very nice. It's actually a little bit heavier than the Surface Pro 3, I believe, but not by much. You almost won't notice it. But it's a bit smaller. It is incredibly easy to just put in a backpack and go. Now, the keyboard's a lot smaller. It doesn't have a trackpad, which is one of the complaints that a lot of people have made about it, is it doesn't have a trackpad. It doesn't have any of the function keys, escape keys, or delete keys, which some people say is very necessary for a productivity device. That's debatable depending on your preferences. And it's running Android. Android is a mobile platform. It is not an OS. It is not a typical OS, excuse me.
Right.
And because of that, things like multiple instances of something, like multiple instances of Chrome, which is not unheard of. You have 2 instances of Chrome and different tabs on both of them. I don't know how much you web browse, but sometimes that gets pretty big, and
It'll be strenuous.
If you want 2 web browsers open next to each other, you can't do that on the same web browser, which means that you have to download Chrome and Firefox, or Chrome and Opera, heaven forbid, or Chrome and Internet Explorer. And that's just not...
That would be a last resort.
Yeah, and that's just not something you want to have to do on something that's supposed to be a productivity device.
Right.
And although NuGet is introducing much nicer ways of doing Windows segregation, so you can do the having several apps on the screen at the same time. You can kind of move around a lot better than you used to be able to on Android devices. However, the windowed version, the reason Windows has its name, you can't do it yet. And so it just makes it not as convenient and not as intuitive as a Surface Pro, which has full-fledged Windows on it. It has Excel, and it has Word, and it has all those productivity tools that make it a full package. I was going to say,
some of them do have those. Like, if you go on Android, like my Android device, I was going to say, I had Windows, Excel, PowerPoint, like I had them all at one point, and then I started deleting them. I'm like, this is taking up memory. I don't need any of this. Yeah. I thought I'd use them. I thought it was great in the beginning, and then I'm like, okay, Word, I'll keep Word, maybe Excel, but then I get rid of PowerPoint and Note.
I live in Excel, unfortunately.
I don't. I live in,
Word, yeah.
I was going to say, most of the times I don't even live in Word. I was going to say, the field I'm going into, I live in Adobe.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Adobe Editions, and that is my editing software.
Yep. Well, I don't know that it would be able to handle... The Pixel C has been praised as it's able to handle some incredibly good video editing software, but at the same time, if you want to render and export a lot of those files, it's going to take twice as long as a typical laptop could, which makes it, although it's an interesting productivity device, it's not primarily for heavy, intense usage, though it can handle it. Now, that being said, the Pixel C has an incredible battery life of, I think it was a little bit over 10 hours. Now, its primary competitor is the Microsoft Surface, or the Surface Pro. Now, the Surface Pro is a lot more expensive, so the Surface 3 would probably be a closer competitor. And it has a trackpad, and it has the function keys, and it is a little bit larger, so it's got a bigger screen. And it's just a little bit more, because it has Windows on it, and because it can handle a lot of the things that have made Windows a productivity tool, because that is where it came from, that is what it was intended to be, instead of a mobile platform, which is ease of use, less distracting, simplified. It might win. Now, where it doesn't win is in battery life. I think the best battery life that I have seen reported was a little over 8 hours. Now, that being said, it does come with 2 different GPUs, I believe, and so you might be able to get an upgraded option that doesn't have a fan that might give you a little bit more battery life, but it's still not going to compare quite as well. However, the real question is exactly how much of this battery life comparison is based on the hardware. Both of them are absolutely amazing pieces of hardware. They are tiny, they are incredibly lightweight, and they do a lot. So if you consider what each of them is doing, on a mobile platform, it makes sense that it would take less battery, because those have been historically designed to use less battery. Windows itself, it uses a little bit more battery, so it's going to be a little heavier on the battery. But the Surface also has a larger battery. So what it comes down to is, because of the added functionality of the fact that this is a full-fledged OS, it's going to use more of your battery, but it's also going to be able to do that much more.
Right.
So, in my opinion, the Surface probably wins, although I absolutely love the Pixel C, which would be fine with me. But if you want it, as what it's sold for is a productivity device, you should probably go with the Surface.
I was gonna say the Surface is in a lot of instances, like I know my girlfriend's brother has a Surface, and he basically has his Surface sitting up on a table or up on like the second part of his desk on a stand, and he's got it connected to a touchscreen.
Oh, well, they both are touchscreen. The Pixel C and the Microsoft Surface are touchscreens now.
Well, yeah, but he connected it to an external touchscreen.
Oh, yes, that's right. Another downside of the Pixel C is it has no video output at all, whereas the Surface has. Even though the Pixel C should have video output since it is USB-C, which has that capability.
Right.
The Surface has I think a mini HDMI, which you can use to hook up to something. It's something that's convenient. If you want to do a presentation, boom, just carry a mini HDMI with you and you can do that. And also the Surface has a USB port. The Pixel C doesn't. Some cool things the Pixel C can do is it's magnetic, so you can stick it to your fridge and continue having a video conversation while you're cooking.
Nice.
That's nice. That is incredibly nice,
that is
but
really
it's
cool.
a small trade. There's small trade-offs here and there.
Here's my question. Wouldn't the magnets in that mess with the hardware at all?
No. So the way they design the hardware is, although the magnets are powerful and it's so that the keyboard can clip to the Surface easily, they are not in areas that would affect any of the. It doesn't do interference. It doesn't have a lot of noise. It's very targeted, very specific magnets that aren't a wide field of range. And if you're looking at electromagnetics, which would be physics 2 in most colleges, they can explain it all there, and I won't get too much into it. But the magnets aren't an issue, but they're kind of just a nice, convenient feature. They decided magnets were the best way to go. Some people disagree. Some people hate the fact that it sticks to things by accident because they might be walking. They might hold it next to something that's metal and it'll want to cling to it. You know, I've had that issue where I didn't realize the stand I was trying to place it on was metal, and so it stuck to it really fast. And I didn't realize, oh, great. And now moving it around isn't that easy. Lifting it up isn't that easy because it's half magnetized on the bottom or something like that. So it can be a pro and a con depending on your environment, but that's a product of your environment. If you love putting something up like a video screen on your fridge, then it would work amazing, and especially if you're doing Skype a lot.
So I have a question. So the case that I have on my tablet, I have a Samsung tablet. It's actually the Tab E.
Okay.
It has the case on the lower half, like where the keyboard goes, has magnets on it. Mm-hmm. Does that affect, like, because I've had people go, oh, why would you want to do that? It'll like ruin your device, and I'm
you know, I have a lot of people tell me that magnets are black magic, which is not true, but they are incredible. They're incredible in terms of physics, and if it's manufactured and it's designed correctly, there shouldn't be an issue. The problem is sometimes they're not designed correctly or assembled correctly. And so you see all of these reports of issues that magnets have caused due to things like this. Now it shouldn't be a problem. It's not a problem anymore. These have been designed to handle the magnetic interference.
Well, I was gonna say, it's also kind of like TVs. Like old TVs, you put a magnet up to it and it would like ruin your screen.
That doesn't happen anymore. We have LCD. We don't have plasma anymore. Most of them are LCD, and we're going beyond that into much more complicated displays, which are pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. I love the technology that we have at our fingertips. I mean, getting a new phone was exciting for me because seeing all the new things. Like, I just got the new, like I have the fingerprint feature on mine, and I got all excited about that because my girlfriend, she used to have, because she's into Apple devices, so we argue about it all the time, which one's better. But she had upgraded her phone and it had that feature, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but you know,
why?
Why?
You don't love it until you really use it. Now, so you're Samsung, your girlfriend's Apple. Well, I'm Google. I have a Nexus device, and it has a special. Has a special section on the back just for fingerprint scanning. I think you can scan up to 8 fingers. It may only 6 or 7. So you can scan one thumb and then most of your other fingers, whichever one you use mostly to unlock it.
Right.
And it'll record those fingerprints so you can unlock it in multiple ways. My issue when the Samsung thumb or finger scanning thing came out is I think it only had 2 or 3. and I constantly wanted to use my other forefinger or my other thumb, and I didn't have that one as one of the listed features.
See, I use my two thumbs is what I have listed.
Yeah, you see, that would make sense, but sometimes I would roll over, my phone would end up on the ground, and then I would want to reach to turn off that alarm, and it was always the alarm that I wanted it for, and it wouldn't turn off until I had the correct finger on the right part of the phone, and even then, the phone sensor in the button I didn't like because it wasn't a very big surface to cover. It was difficult to get it in just the right way, and the Nexus device has an entire back part of the phone, an enormous sensor that is incredibly accurate, that is entirely dedicated to getting your fingerprint right. And I like that. I know that technology is going to spread through other devices soon, which has me excited because biometrics are getting better and better. The new Note 7 that was released has an IR filter in its camera so it can identify your eyes. It can unlock based on your look. The way you look at it.
That's really cool.
And it doesn't matter if you wear glasses. One of my friends has the device, and he has glasses, and he never bothered taking them off. I mean, at first you'll make funny faces when you try to unlock your phone, and then you realize you don't have to do that. And it'll unlock. It takes split seconds. Sometimes you don't even see the camera adjusting to try and find your eyes.
Right.
And I tried to trick it, and it does not work. IR filters are incredibly good cameras, and it's amazing. If you can unlock it with your eyes, you can unlock it with your voice, you can unlock it with your fingers. What's next? I'm excited.
Now, the funny part about it is, you get all this technology coming out, like the fingerprint and all that, but that's most of the time it's all in the background because you get a selfie camera on the front or something like that. And I'm like, seriously, have we really gotten to a point where selfie cameras are that important?
Well, let me put it this way. If you're gonna do selfies, you might as well be the best doing it you can be. So you're gonna want that extra quality camera. You know what? Make it a good camera, because I am tired of those really bad MySpace photos that are incredibly blurry, where people are, I think, making gang signs or trying to do the peace symbol. I can't tell because their skin color is the same as the color of the wall behind them, and you can't really differentiate it. If you get a crisp, clear photo, you're going to be able to see everything and make fun of that person as appropriate.
I just have a question. Who uses MySpace anymore?
No, that was the first place. I actually never had a MySpace account, but that was the first place I noticed crappy photos are being taken. All the ones that are at really weird angles.
Yes.
And all of the teenage people who kind of made selfies a thing. All of those people are now adults. Can you believe that?
No, I cannot. I can't believe that I'm an adult.
Yeah, I still haven't accepted that fact.
Me either. Anyway, no, some of this technology that's out is just ridiculous. Like I said, I'm trying. I haven't even gotten my grandma to the fingerprint feature on her phone yet.
A little bit at a time. And actually, it might not work for old people. So
she doesn't have any fingerprints. If you look, her fingers are flat.
I did an entire seminar at Carnegie Mellon workshop for women where we worked with. It was called Developing Technology for the Golden Years, and we actually had to think about a lot of these elements that plague the older generations. And it's not just this idea that they don't like technology. It is a lot of the times technology, because it's not designed for them, doesn't work for them.
Right.
Like having wrinkles. They can't use a lot of biometric scanners because the wrinkles affect the way it is. The fingerprints are worn down. They're not as clear. It's going to be harder for them to do that. They might not be able to do voice technology. Their eyes, they might have cataracts. There's a lot of things that affect them that don't affect these younger generations that people don't develop for, they don't account for, and so it kind of makes them feel alienated by technology.
Right.
And so if you learn that and you understand that, you realize, okay, you don't have to have all those fancy bells and whistles. We'll take them out of a phone, or we'll just deactivate them. And this is the reason why easy mode exists on your phone, where the letters are enormous. And you think it's overkill, but some people need it.
I accidentally turned my phone on easy mode one day, and I couldn't turn it off.
I hate that mode, but that's because I don't need it. Granted, when I'm old and blind, I will definitely use it.
No, anyway, but I got her into, so what I did is I got her, I had this tablet, and it was a free tablet, and I ended up getting another free tablet. So I ended up giving her that one. Mm-hmm. So she's had an Android tablet for about a year.
Okay.
So I've kind of got introduced her slowly to Android devices, because, it's got the Like she had her entire contacts on there. I just
Mhm.
right at the store I logged her onto her
Mhm.
contacts list and
The
boom, it
setup.
was right in her
Yep,
phone.
setup's always the biggest barrier for a lot of them. But so long as they get used to it, they can do what they want to do on it. Go to Facebook, use a browser, check their emails. And then if they have any problems, they'll probably give you a call. I've done a lot of IT support for my family, unfortunately, but my dad's usually the number one IT support, which leaves me a second seat. I'm very happy about that.
um, no, so but one of the things that I really like about the new, like to transfer the stuff from my phone, the cool new thing is I got this piece that came with my phone,
Mhm.
and you plug it into the USB section of your phone cord, and you can
Mhm.
plug two phones together, and it will transfer everything, including apps, from one phone to the other.
That's brilliant. They also have, I believe Samsung has the NFC where you can,
The S
I
Beam.
think they call it, yeah, beaming
Yep, the S Beam.
data to people. I remember when that first came out,
Me
me
too.
and one of my other colleagues had it, and I had a picture of a puppy on my phone because I had just gotten my puppy, and I went up to her and I put my phone back to her phone, and boom, she had a picture of a puppy, and it made her day. I was like, that's the coolest feature ever. I never used it after that,
Mm-mm.
but I never really had the need to transfer data that much.
Right.
Now that I'm working, I have that need all the time. And so transferring data through that beaming technology is something I do all the
Well,
time because emailing, it takes forever to load some of these PDFs if it's large data files, you know?
well, in my my friend and I were curious. We're like, so what about it going back to back is it? And we realized it's the cameras, because the cameras have to be lined up perfectly
Mhm.
in order for it to work. So I don't know if it's just that it senses each other and then it can just
It often is that a lot of the sensors and a lot of that kind of technology is around the camera.
yeah.
So most of the phone is battery for the phone.
Right.
There's a little Bluetooth module, there's a wireless module, which is incredible in Google devices. They have pretty good. Now you're getting two, a dedicated front camera and a dedicated rear camera instead of the bad selfie camera and the
Right.
okay rear camera. And now you're getting the sensors for fingerprints now. You're getting flashlights automatically. Do you remember when flashlights weren't a thing in phones?
Yes.
I am
Yes.
so glad they're now mandatory in phones. Now everyone is carrying a flashlight, and it's brilliant. And it makes concerts a lot more interesting and safer as well.
Yeah, yeah, rather than lighters, and
Mhm.
if your lighter goes out and you're like, "Oh man."
Yep. Yep.
No, one cool thing that I do remember the days when you turn on your phone, you turn your screen all the way up and
Mhm.
try to use it as a flashlight.
Yep. Those days were sad.
See, and it's funny because on my old phone, I actually downloaded, or originally I downloaded an app because I'm like, oh, that wasn't an actual feature on the
Yep.
devices. You had to download a third-party app,
Mhm.
and then that would turn. So I did that for a while. In my last phone, it was part of the actual Android operating system,
Mhm.
but you still had like this little widget that you had to put up.
Mhm.
Now, when you drag the menu down across the top when you
Yep,
have all those
it's
settings, you drag
integrated.
it all the way to the side, and there's the light button, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
and
this
you
is
can
sweet.
prioritize some of those now. So mine is a priority. When I drag down the thing, it is one of the top things that shows up because I use it so much. Because my dog is so bad at seeing in the dark that if he wants to jump up on my bed and he can't see, he will miss every time.
I am bad at seeing my dog in the dark. That's
That
my
is also
problem.
an issue. I don't want to step on him.
Well, see, I don't worry about stepping. I'm talking about my big dog
Yeah, right.
because he tries to run,
Oh yes, that's right.
and he's
And he is a black dog, so.
he is a black dog, and so at night it is miserable to try to see him. But then you've also got to make sure that he's doing what he's supposed to when he's outside, so I'm not
Mhm.
freezing my butt off for no reason.
Exactly.
So these are the things that I think about.
Yep.
Welcome to the mind
Using
of Aaron.
your $300+ smartphone to watch your dog take a shit. Yep, that's excellent.
But no, anyway, but I love the technology that we do have, and it is kind of cool that I get to talk to you every once in a while and kind of figure out how it works and what it is
Yeah.
and why it's there and what's to come. And
I mean, you want the nitty-gritty details, you want to talk to an engineer, but I'm a sales engineer, so I can narrow
both.
it down to the stuff that really matters and the stuff that people care about when they're buying a device, because sometimes you just don't care how close the proximity sensors really are, comparative devices,
Right.
all those details.
Well, and then like you were talking how you're kind of going between engineers and I think it's sales guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I am technically in sales, and right now I'm doing inside sales, but when I talk to the salespeople, they don't really care about what it's going to take to program something. The engineers absolutely care about what it's going to take, and so they need to come up with lists of everything they need to know, and even then they're going to miss spots. So unless you really know how it works, stuff is going to be missed.
So basically, you're the filter between
Well,
the engineers and the sales.
I'm hoping to alleviate that issue so I don't have to do that role and take on other larger projects that I'm looking to work on in the future. But it has been an issue now where, and I see it in all companies, the larger companies I've worked for and the smaller companies I've worked for. And I've worked at startups, I've worked at middle road companies, and I'm currently at a kind of mid-phase company. We're still technically considered a startup. But I don't know, we're started more than 5 years ago, so I think that makes us kind of old, almost old for a startup now. But it's that level, it's that point where the engineers say, I need all this information, and salespeople say, why do I need to give you all this tiny detailed information? Why can't you just talk with their engineers? And it's the things you need to know, and I come in and I filter down, what do you absolutely need to know before even quoting this, before even saying this is possible or is it not possible, because that's the real thing. You don't want to promise someone something you can't deliver on.
Well, but you don't want to have to gather this enormous list of things that they need to know, and then they get past the first one and go, we can't do it.
And they always say they need to know all of it. And although they do need to know all of it when they're actually starting to develop it, they don't need to know all of it right up front. They just need to know, if this is what I need to do, these are the minimum requirements that need to be met in order for us to even work on this at all and say it's feasible. And I've kind of tried to change the mindset of the engineers and the salespeople and how that information flow goes so that people aren't arguing and there's no panicking.
Well, but then you've got to think about it this way too. You've got the engineers who are trying, they need these lists so they know how they're going to develop and what they're going to do and how they're going to go about it. And that's how they think. They don't think about, the minor, they don't think about, what's the minimum requirements. And the sales guys are like, okay, this is great. It's going to be awesome. But I need just these 5 things.
Yeah. And also you have to give a base understanding to the salespeople to be like, okay, you need to understand what it's going to take to do something like that. If it's going to take 60 hours, 80 hours, 500 hours, you need to know that. And the engineers need to be able to give you some kind of an estimate. 2 weeks? Well, what does 2 weeks mean? Does that mean 2 weeks, 40 hours a week you're working on this project? Or does that mean 2 weeks, 20 hours a week you're working on this project or less? Like, you need to have a hard number and you need to be able to work with that. And that's part of where the frustration comes. But it's an interesting process, and I've seen it done really well and I've seen it done very poorly.
Right.
And one of the ways I've seen it done really well is all salespeople must first have a bachelor's in engineering. And that's interesting, except for when your bachelor was more than 30 years ago and you don't remember anything anymore and all of engineering has changed. So, you have to try and stay new and stay hip with the engineering, which is really difficult to do. Yeah, hip. I said hip and engineering in the same sentence.
Hip. No one says hip.
Yeah, I'm clearly not hip anymore.
Anyway, I'm just really excited, and thank you for that insight on a lot of the things that are coming up, because people don't really think about what goes into a phone. They're like, hey, look, a phone. It does this.
It works.
Yay.
Base level requirements, it works.
Well, and I was going to say, I look for certain things that I'm going to want in a phone. And I actually recently there hasn't been a phone that I'm like, oh wow, that's so awesome. Like the Edge, I was like that for a little bit, and then I got a friend who got that phone, and I'm like, it's not as cool as I thought it would be.
It had a lot of hype. Now, the 3 main things a lot of people look at when they're looking for a phone is price, because that's always a big deal. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for the Note 7 because I don't think it's such a remarkable break in hardware history. I'd rather wait a couple of years for it to filter down the pipes and be a little less expensive. It's a $1,000 phone. That is an expensive device, yes. And phones have been climbing more and more and more because they're expecting you to add it onto a plan where you're paying it off slowly.
Right.
But those plans don't generally account for depreciation of value of the phone. So you're paying off what it was when you wanted to get the phone, which means you're paying off 2, sometimes 3 times the price of the phone by the time you're done with it.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now because I'm paying off my phone. But anyway, no, one of the there used to be times when so I went from like a candy bar phone with a slide keyboard.
Oh, I love those phones.
To a touchscreen phone with a slide keyboard.
Yep.
And it was funny because I remember at that point I'm like, I'm always gonna have a keyboard. These on-screen keyboards suck. And then I jumped to, what did I jump to? I jumped to the Note. The Note 2.
Yep.
I jumped to the Note 2. And the S Pen, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I never use the S Pen. But then I jumped to the Note 3. Still never use the S Pen. Very rarely.
I know a lot of people who doodle though, and they use it
Well,
religiously.
and that's why I'm sitting here, And the only problem I had with it, I would have used it a little bit more, is like not all Samsung devices are compatible with it.
Mhm.
And that's something that I feel like we need to, like they need to sit down and try to figure out, like, can this be a thing? And maybe come out with a line of, because you've got the S Pens that come with the phones, come out with a line of pens that work, that are S Pens that are, fancy and like, because it's actually kind of funny. My girlfriend has a Windows Surface, and the pen that came with her Surface worked on my Android phone.
Nice.
But it had like an eraser feature on her tablet,
and that
where you like turn it around and you can actually like erase, and that was kind of cool. But I mean, I feel like Samsung, if they make that kind of like a feature that you have throughout all their devices, and then the ones that don't come with it, you can, purchase this separately.
Well, the reason is those pens aren't as smart as you might think they are right now, and until they are, there's not going to be a way of identifying between the phone and the pen, of whether or not it belongs to that phone, or whether or not, you need to have the software ability to recognize, and that right now isn't there, and they don't feel the need to put it in because it's a cheap little pen.
Well, and like I said, I feel like that's kind of an asset that they're just kind of like, oh, look, it's a pen. Well, it's kind of like, okay, well, why don't you pick that up and run with it? Develop it a little bit more. Make it standard across all your devices. Because, honestly, if my S Pen had worked with my tablet, I would go for another Note phone.
Yeah.
Because I would still get this phone, but I would buy, spend the extra money to get one of those, special pens that I could use on both of my devices. Because that was my problem. I had to get a stylist, but I like the really fine points. So that, like the tip on that was awesome. But it didn't work on my tablet. So then I found, like one of the bubble ones, but it was a really fine tip. I don't like them, but I found a really fine tip one. And so I used that on both. Anyway, so now I'm like, okay, well, why do I need the Note?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a lost asset that...
Well, and among that, on a lot of things, a lot of issues that I see so often is that people, and it's not Apple's fault and it's not anyone's fault, it's just an ignorance issue. It's people don't seem to understand that the hardware is different from your service provider, is different from the software that's running on your phone.
Right.
So all Android phones are not Samsung. All Samsung phones are not Android. AT&T, so if you're complaining about your calls being dropped, don't blame the Samsung phone. It's probably not a hardware issue. If it is a hardware issue, then you have a right to blame the Samsung phone. But it's probably not Samsung. It's probably not Android. So don't hate Android and Samsung when your service provider is the one that's the problem. And I see that all the time, and I see people argue with me. And I have to make sure that people understand, if you have Sprint and you live in an area where Sprint is very bad, don't have Sprint. Switch to T-Mobile or AT&T or Cricket or whatever else works in your area, or Project Fi, which is Google's amazing new thing, but it runs on the back of Sprint and T-Mobile and all of those groups. So you have to do your research. You have to know, this is the service provider I have. They're selling this phone. This is going to work together. This phone runs this OS. In Apple, it's their hardware, it's their OS, and the service provider is the only variance. But if you have poor, say, AT&T coverage, I think AT&T used to have exclusive rights to Apple phones at one time.
Yeah.
And that's no more.
Not at all.
Which is a good move on their part.
Well, yeah, because I can get it at Sprint, you can get it at Verizon, AT&T can get it.
I remember back in the day before when the little iPad shuffles were big.
Yes.
I believe back when AT&T had exclusive rights to it. I believe. I might be wrong with that. I haven't really done my research on.
It wasn't the. It was history. The shuffle because the.
Yeah, that thing they
don't
sell anymore. They don't sell iPods anymore.
iPods at all?
Yeah, because the phones are totally capable of it.
I thought they did.
I
thought they sold
iPod
Touches still.
They're not designing them anymore.
Okay.
They're also done with iPads soon. Now that they have kind of more closer to laptop tablets. Well, but that's just the thing. That's the direction it's going in. So we now have gotten to a part in phone history where we have phones with 128 gigabytes storage, which is insane. It's got 8 gigs of RAM. I know computers that don't have 8 gigs of RAM, and yet this tiny little phone can store more than old computers, and it can run faster. than
Well,
old
it's kind of like
computers.
the picture of the original Mario game, and then the caption. This picture has more. What is it? This picture has or takes
More
more
history.
memory
Yeah.
than the entire original game did.
Yes.
And
Yep.
it's kind of like you think about it, and it really does because you
Better and
know
better.
you have this picture,
Mhm.
which is so many. We're up to gigabytes now.
Yep.
I remember when megabytes were still a thing.
Now you're aging yourself.
I am. I'm very old. No, but I remember when megabytes like that was a
Mhm.
thing, and now you're getting onto. Then you went on to gigabytes. Now they're on to terabytes.
Yeah. Phones haven't quite hit a standard terabyte yet. It's really expensive to get to that point. 128 is kind of the largest that I've seen available commercially, at least in the United States. I'm not sure about internationally, but that to me is really impressive because we always used to say, oh, well, we're never going to use 10 gigs of data, except we are running out of that fast. I have a 16 gig phone. I have no space. Apps take up too much space. I mean, just because I'm doing so much with it, I expect so much with the phone, and it's a convenience cost. It's as we rely more and more on these devices, we're going to expect and need more and more and more, and that's where the market trend's going. So 128 gigs, I'd be more than happy.
See, and the problem is like right now, like especially with my phone, one of the major complaints I had, like the battery, I can live with that. I'll buy
Mhm.
something that I can charge it with on the go and whatnot.
Mhm.
That's fine. The thing that really bothered me is the fact that I can't add any memory to my phone.
Yeah.
What it has is what it has.
Which is why I was so excited for modular phones, because then you could spend a little bit more money and get a little bit more space, except, that project got closed.
But no, and I it's one of those things. I've made the joke before, and it's a little bit serious. Is Samsung is kind of going in the they're both phones are going in the same direction, but
Mm-hmm.
I see Samsung getting more and more and more like Apple devices, where they're closed and you know what I'm talking about? Like you can't add memory, you've got to buy a new phone to get more memory and stuff like that.
I mean, okay. From a user standpoint, I can see how it might appear that way. From a developer and an engineering standpoint, I feel you could not be more far off.
But I mean, from a user standpoint, you think
Yeah.
about it. Okay, well, if I buy a phone, I'm spending all this money on a phone. Why am I not allowed? Why can't I be? Why can't I have that little
Mhm.
flap in the side of my phone where I can throw a SIM card or an SD card in there?
Yeah. It's becoming less a modders world. It's becoming less of a thing where you can tamper with their devices, and a lot of the reasons because of that are because of things like this battery pack. If you were able to change your battery pack, what if you put a cheap battery pack, your phone caught on fire, and now you're blaming Samsung for it, even though it's aftermarket? You know what? This happened with iPod. Or excuse me, not iPod. This happened with Apple in the same story, on the same lines. The only reasons these battery chargers had problems with the Samsung Note, this new device that just came
Right.
out, is because, and you'll see in the pictures posted of the devices that lit on fire, they're using aftermarket charging cords that are below standard. This is a very high amp charge battery. If you use too much of it or not enough of it, or you somehow mess with that standard and you are not in spec, and if you buy a cheap charging cord, that is likely to happen, you are messing with the chemicals in that battery and it is not going to be good, and that's why these things were catching on fire. Now that still shouldn't happen, but sometimes you just can't account for everything.
Well, and like I said, the battery thing doesn't really bother me that much.
But they don't want people to be able to destroy their devices and turn around and blame them, because that opens up lawsuits. And lawsuits are one of the main reasons why these are becoming closed. Now, that being said, the difference between Apple closed and Samsung closed is that Apple is very not willing to share a lot of the information they have. Samsung shares everything they have. They let you know exactly what they're doing with a GPU update or a CPU
Right.
update or anything like that. And that makes developers a lot happier, but again, this closed off thing is still, it's sad that I see it going in that direction, but again, Samsung is taking leaps and bounds that I don't see other smartphone manufacturers taking. I mean, Motorola is doing great things, HTC is doing great things, LG, they have great
Microsoft
stuff.
is trying to keep up with everything.
Microsoft is more in the PCs and tablets world. They haven't really reached the point where their phones really do more than their competitors. They haven't at all reached that point.
Like I said, they're trying to stay in the running.
They're trying, and they've partnered with a lot of companies. They've I've heard rumors of them partnering with Google and just sticking with that. I don't know if those are true, but I don't know that they're going to really want to jump in the smartphone market because it is a very large market, but it's also really saturated right now.
Yeah.
And it's a tough competitive market to get into. Do they really want to compete with Apple, which sells well, has name brand recognition, they are nice phones, and they're pretty good? Or do you want to go with Samsung, which has incredible technology, and if Samsung closed down its entire smartphone division, they have enough money to reopen it from scratch. This is a company that makes way more than just smartphones, and people don't really know that. They make all sorts of appliances and technology that all of this stuff filters down into. But if you're competing against those companies that have money to do this, it's a little overwhelming.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I think I'm pretty teched out for the day.
Yep,
that was all my techie talk.
You want to talk about chicken? Chicken and waffles?
Let's talk about... Well, I was going to talk about Gilmore Girls first, but...
Gilmore Girls is a good
either way, that brings us into our Movie Madness Monday portion of the show. Which I'm trying to do the best I can at trying to find content, so bear with me. Okay, so, guys, we talked about this before. There's going to be a Gilmore Girls reboot, and Michaela, I know you said you don't know too much about this. Did you watch the original show at all?
I did not, but, I mean, when I went to the gym, sometimes there were episodes on that I may or may not have totally had the guilty pleasure of watching, but I'm not up to date in any
I was going to say,
fashion.
I'm a guy, and I started watching it with my girlfriend. I grew up with sisters, so they would watch it, and I'd just sit down and watch it, and so now I'm trying to go through the series with my girlfriend to try to figure out,
everything.
The bits and pieces that I'm missing.
Yeah, you miss stuff when you go through it once.
Right. Anyway, either way, the show's been off the air for several years. Well, they just announced a reboot for only so many episodes. And there was a little thing with Melissa McCarthy because they didn't, they said that she was too busy, but she said that they didn't offer her to come back.
Oh, geez. Controversy.
So then they offered her to come back, and she accepted. So her character's going to be coming back, and all is good with the world.
Okay.
Well, I guess they released their first episode is gonna take place in the middle of winter. So everybody's trying to figure out why this, why that is. Why is it in the middle of winter? There were some pictures of the 3 generations of Gilmore Girls, so the grandma, the mother, and all in a cemetery.
Yeah. Oh.
So that assumption is most of the time that assumption is the fact that they're assuming that Lorelai, who is the mother, her father passed away because the actor who is Edward Herman passed away in 2014.
That would make sense.
So I think that they're probably going to add something about that and kind of honor his memory with that, that I like when they do that. I mean, you look at what they did with Paul Walker in the movie Fast and the Furious, and that was kind of cool how they didn't kill off his character just because he died.
Yeah.
But
did as much as they could with what they had. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and they did all that with his brother, and the way they ended it was really awesome. So that was kind of cool. But then there are other instances when it is really nice to honor somebody who has passed away with their character passing away. So I don't know. It's kind of depending on what kind of movie or what kind of setting it's in. That action thing. I was sitting in Fast and Furious 7 in theaters. I was sitting there, and there were so many times I'm like, he's gonna die now.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen now. And then I saw the ending. I'm like, oh, that was awesome.
Wow, that's great.
But
I don't think Gilmore Girls is gonna be quite so action packed, but it's starting off with a very gloomy footing. So I'm wondering what direction it's going to take.
Well, and okay, so you've had several different things that have happened in the actual series. You had the mother whose name's Lorelai got together with the guy, I can't think of his name, who owned the restaurant that they always go to. They got together for a while, and then she cheated, and I'm knowing this from, I actually just found that out of a series of Watch Mojo videos that I watched. But no, but I guess she cheated and they broke up, blah 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 blah.
Drama.
But now there was another shot of them in that same restaurant. So it's have they got back together? Have they not? So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. I,
Speculation.
it's one thing that I love about reboots.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen Fuller House?
Yeah, so I am excited that they're doing this kind of a reboot because this whole story, these series have so much rich history that you can pull little bits and pieces to make fans say, "Oh, that's from this episode. I remember that," and make them really feel like get the kind of closure that it's going to be done because it's only going to be for a few episodes and really be able to appreciate everything that was the writing throughout the years and the seasons that they've done.
Well, and what's funny is like, okay, so they rebooted or they did a new show to Boy Meets World called Girl Meets World, which is really good, by the way. And you can see the difference between the shows. Like, Boy Meets World was one of my all-time favorite shows because there were points when it would want to make you cry, it'd make you really happy, it'd make you, things like that. But it was at other times very, very serious. And Girl Meets World is a lot of time very silly.
Really
And it is.
interesting. Okay.
It's a lot kind of sillier, and they point out the fact that it was brought up that Corey and Topanga had Mr. Feeney for every grade every year for their entire school career, including college. So that was brought up, and that's kind of funny. And they've brought back almost the entire cast at
That's
some
nice.
point. So
I
that's
believe
kind
I've
of
seen a few episodes of that. Yeah.
it's really good.
Mhm.
I mean, but they even brought back a character that was in like only the first couple seasons of Boy Meets World. It was Harley, who was the bully.
Oh.
They brought him back as the janitor.
Oh, so they're trying to say bullying doesn't pay off and stuff along
Well,
those lines.
no,
They have messages.
They do.
Oh,
They
okay.
do, just like Boy
That
Meets
they
World.
replay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's very excellent.
So, but what they did is like, he was a janitor at their middle school. So now they're in high school, so he's not, in the show anymore. But it was kind of cool to see him because like, there was one point when the students had to follow around one of the faculty members, and the two girls went with the lunch ladies, and the two guys went with the janitor, or Harley, the janitor.
Yeah.
And they started to gain appreciation. So that was really cool,
Okay.
and they kind of connected it. So it's really cool, and it gives you that kind of like giddy feeling when you're like, oh, this is so nice, and Mr.
It's
Feeney
just
came
like
back,
it.
and things like that.
Yeah, that reminiscence. Yeah.
Right, but it was one of those things where it kind of connects the youth now who watch these series
With the older.
to the people who grew up with it.
So it's kind of trying to knit together something that 2 or 3 different generations can really appreciate all the same. That's actually really cool. That would give you a lot more opportunity for bonding between
Well, and then
older
like
siblings or generations.
and then like
parents
Fuller
maybe.
House, I kind of saw the same thing because Full House, yes, it was a comedy and it was very silly and stuff. But there's just like a different atmosphere to both, like from the old one to the new one.
Yeah.
Because the old one, it could be very serious a lot of times. There'd be a joke and like a laugh track and a lot of that. But then you get to the new one and it's revamped and it's kind of very, very silly and kind of like it really happens, but it's a lot different from the original.
Yeah, it's a newer generational take on all of these.
Right, but then you just but I watched like an episode of Boy Meets World and then an episode of Girl Meets World, and it's like they're so different, but yet the content is
Pretty
still
similar,
the same.
The core content, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's just masking it in different generations, different societal.
well, in a lot of
issues.
these, like Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World are the exact same writers. It's the same company.
Excellent. That's
So, and
That'd
they
be
actually
fun.
use the same old little logo that they used to do at the end of Boy Meets World. They do that at the end of Girl Meets World. So that was kind of cool. But it's things like that, like, but there's a lot of shows that I think that they should bring back that I know they won't. Like Saved by the Bell won't happen
yeah.
because they've tried that, and a lot of the actors and actresses that did that are like, we're done.
Yeah.
But I got really excited for Fuller House. Because the idea of that was really cool, and the fact that they brought back all the actresses and
That's gonna be tough to do. Yeah.
well, and in both cases, I watched kind of behind the scenes, and they're like, it was kind of just like coming back to family. They're kind of like
the roots.
we fell back into the same groove that we were in, and everything all clicked, and
Yeah. I mean, when you work with somebody that long, that's gonna happen.
well, and everybody had kept in contact over the years.
Oh, that's excellent. That's amazing.
So, but it's one of those things where, yeah, you have been with these people for how many days a week and it's kind of like it's really funny because you had another one that's kind of a reboot but kind of not is the show Last Man Standing.
Mhm.
It's kind of a reboot of Home Improvement, if you think about it,
Huh.
because he had 3 boys, now he has 3 girls.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. And one cool part about that is actually I heard that the new Tim Allen meets his old character from Home Improvement,
Oh.
but I guess they killed him off.
Oh, I loved Home Improvement. I
But he
remember
was,
that.
but it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense because he was always getting hurt.
Mhm.
So now, I mean, it's kind of gory, but it's
Yeah.
still it's kind of funny. I mean, I think it would have been great if he would have dressed up as his old character and they would have met face to face.
Oh, that would have been really nostalgic. Little flashbacks right there.
Right. But no, but I guess they go in and talk to he goes in and talks to the wife of his old character and things like that. And I don't know. It's just things like that. Kind of like you said, it's like Easter eggs that only the
Yeah.
people who would watch those shows know about.
It's a tribute to your diehard fans.
Yes.
Essentially.
But I don't know. I just like some of the reboots that they're doing, and I like how they're doing it. And then you watch, you watch the 2 back to back, and you're like,
Yeah.
these are so different.
Well, I mean, speaking of things that come back, so do you remember the original Zoolander movie?
Yes.
Well, 10 years later, they did the Zoolander 2, and both of them are absurdly silly movies.
How was Zoolander 2? Was it really good? I haven't seen it
I
yet.
loved both of them.
Okay.
I got, so my brother is 16 years old, and
Is he really?
Yeah. Well, so during his Eagle Scout Court of Honor, I convinced his girlfriend that she and I are going to make funny blue steel faces at him while he's making his speech.
Did it work? I
We
was
wanted
there,
to
and
get him to laugh. He ended up not cracking a smile, but not laughing, so we didn't break him. But I think we didn't try hard enough. We didn't want to embarrass him completely, but
right.
as soon as we got that smile, we're like, okay, we can stop this. But doing that, if you get a group of teenagers to do that, it is so much fun, and it's nice because this is a movie that was 10 years ago. My brother's 6. They're not gonna remember Zoolander 1. They're not gonna remember anything about it, and so they don't realize. So now it's like something that bonds me and my brothers together because now they can relate to it. Now they understand it. They still think
Right.
it's absurd and ridiculous, but it's fun.
Well, everybody thinks it's absurd and
I mean,
ridiculous,
it was
but it's
designed to be.
Zoolander.
You can tell the actors are having so much fun.
You're right.
And making fun of fashion.
Well,
I mean,
and-
what's more fun than
And then
that?
if you look at the actual movie, like if you watch Zoolander, the original,
Mhm.
the computers that they have,
Oh, man.
weren't those like original Macs?
You can tell that things have changed. I'll put it that way.
Yes, I was gonna say they've got the
But
giant
The
monitors.
one thing that hasn't changed is how absurd fashion is. And that's the thing they're continuing to make fun of. And that's what makes it such a great,
Yes.
silly movie, is because it has a message on top of just having fun at making fun of people.
See, and that's one thing that I feel like we lack in this day and age with TV shows. You look back at a lot of the TV shows, and yeah, there were some that didn't have messages, but a lot of them, there was like a message behind the whole thing.
Mhm. I mean, every episode in Pokemon had a message, but I have to give credit to some of the cartoon developers nowadays, because now they have 2 messages. They have the subliminal messages, usually, well, not necessarily subliminal, but the kind of undertones that are directed at adults to make adults a little bit more entertained when they watch these shows.
Right.
And then they have the normal experience for children, where it's entertaining enough it'll keep their attention, but they're not going to remember it tomorrow probably.
And then when they watch it a few years later, those
Suddenly
those
everything
subtle
makes sense.
perks are gonna
Mm-hmm.
just like ruin the movie for you.
Exactly. But they're trying to captivate these 2 audiences to make it more popular.
I think Disney has done that very, very, very well.
Yeah, well, you want to know where it started?
Where?
It started with My Little Pony listening to their fandom, because they realized that most of their fandoms aren't little kids, which might have disturbed them at first, but they kind of embraced it because they have referenced things from the fandom in the actual show. And I have to
Nice.
give them credit for that, because they started this whole addressing the adults that are watching a children's cartoon. And
Right.
that sparked all of these movies, all of these Madagascar movies, all of these other shows, cartoons, Adventure Time, Steven Universe. They're getting really good because adults and teenagers and everyone can actually get into the story.
Right.
And actually understand a lot of the more serious parts that they're trying to address, and the rest of it, it's just how they go about doing it silly, but there's
See,
there's
I
those,
love the dirty jokes
those-
that are hidden in movies.
King
and then-
Julian. There is a branch off of Madagascar called All Hail King Julian that,
Mhm.
if you watch, it is definitely not for children, in my opinions, because of all of the incredible innuendos they have packed into that series. It is a Netflix original. It is only on Netflix. It is incredibly funny to watch. You would die laughing, but I would never show that to
See,
any
and it's really
children.
funny because I actually, as a kid, I remember I went back and watched TV shows, and there's been so many innuendos in those shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was referring to when I meant Disney was really good at, like, they're really good at putting innuendos in there
Yep.
to make it that much more entertaining for
Yep.
adults.
To shake it up. Yep.
You know what I mean? So
I mean, you're gonna have to watch Frozen 32 times because your little girl loves it. You know, you might as well make it a little bit interesting and make fun of the fact that this girl just asked this guy to marry she's just met, or something along those
or
lines.
that
You
the
know.
ballroom has no balls.
Yeah, or let's make an ice skating rink out of this whole thing, and then you realize how incredibly weird this social gathering is and how the town works. But, you know, there's little subtle things in there too, things Elsa says, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You really, if you're paying attention to the really fine details, Disney goes crazy.
No, but it's just really funny. But like I said, I feel like the reason a lot of '90s cartoons and TV shows and stuff are
Mhm.
coming back is because they were really popular, and that I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times they had messages. But like, do you remember the show Double Dare?
I do not.
Well, it was a show in the '90s, and they're bringing it
Mhm.
back.
Oh, really?
Along with there was one, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like Temple whatever. It was like a Temple game show on Nickelodeon.
That sounds familiar.
They're bringing that back too. They built a whole new set.
They're
The
bringing a
original.
lot of 90s shows back. I
Yes.
wonder if it's because the 90s kids are now becoming parents more increasingly, or they're now getting married and becoming parents or thinking of having children. And so that's the target audience. So if you bring things back from the 90s, it's going to hit home for them, and they're going to want to have their kids watch these shows as well.
I think
I
it's
mean,
also
I know
the
my
fact
dad
that
and I watched shows that were from his childhood. That's why I'm such a Stargate fan.
I was gonna say Stargate's really good,
Yes, it is.
but I watched the show MASH,
Oh,
which
yep,
is really
yep,
old.
I watched
Like
that
I
too.
watched that with my dad,
Mhm.
and actually it was on Netflix. I watched from beginning to end, and you don't realize
DVDs.
it was really good.
Yep.
But you know, it's kind of funny because some of these old TV shows you watch from beginning to end, and then there's like random episodes in the middle of nowhere
Mhm.
because they didn't intend
Filler,
to
yeah.
put these on, you know, CDs and
Yeah.
have people to own them originally.
Mhm.
So now they're trying to scramble to figure out what order they were originally aired in,
Yeah. And even
or
then-
they weren't even like that. You know, they had kind of a storyline, but they'd throw random episodes in there.
Fillers and
But it was kind of it was interesting to watch. Like I'm going back and watching a lot of like Pokemon Go has sparked a lot of people to go and watch the original Pokemon series.
way back before Pokemon Go, before even Fire Red and Leaf Green were a big deal, before the Nintendo DS was even a big deal, I decided I was going to go back to my childhood and I was going to try and rewatch Pokemon, and I could not do it. It was so linear in the beginning. It was such a clear arc of here's Ash. Ash runs into a problem. Ash resolves the problem. Everyone's happy again. End of story. End of that episode. It didn't really start having more complicated arcs until several seasons into it. But I can appreciate the simplicity, and I can appreciate this is a painfully obvious moral story that they are
Right.
trying to get across in every episode. And you know what? They had to be that obvious because their audience is so young.
Yeah.
I watched one of the older episodes or the later episodes, the ones that are airing now, and my brother had no idea what was going on because it was trying to address very complicated problems.
Right.
And I think they're trying to do too much now. Simple for children works well. And it was also entertaining. I mean, I can't watch it anymore, mostly because the voice acting is not up to par with what I'm used to anymore. And the animation, I've grown accustomed to a certain level of nicety, right?
Oh, they reanimated Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. I was done.
Yep.
Couldn't do it.
Yep. I mean, the originals are nice, but I can't handle Ash's voice anymore. And I know it was done by a woman in the beginning, and she did a great job, and I loved it when I was a kid. I just, for some reason, can't stand it now.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when they change the voice actor in the middle of a series.
Oh, yeah, that always bothers me. Brock, I think they did that to him a couple times at least.
Did they?
Yeah, and I could not. I mean, Brock was always a very confusing character. I never really knew what his game was. I just knew that he was creepy when it came to Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny and all of those characters, and he was this subtle womanizer, but they didn't really want to tread on that territory because it was a little out of the scope of kids.
Right.
And he was a complicated character that I didn't really understand or appreciate or anything. But I mean, I suppose they felt the need they had to have one.
And it's really funny because a lot of jokes are going around now about how people who are playing Pokemon Go were either A, making fun of people who used to play Pokemon or watch it, or B, have no clue where it originated from or what the origin cards
so
look
much
like.
more. I mean, Pokemon was a huge franchise. Pokemon Go has reached new levels of audiences where people didn't. I mean, I'm the one who originally got my brothers into Pokemon. Now, granted, that survived because all of their friends were into it too, but these are things I was playing when I was really little, and my sister first got that Game Boy Color, and I was so excited to just watch her play the game because it was so amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember she had Pokemon Gold, and we also had Pokemon Yellow when Pikachu could follow you, and these were so cool. And I remember how bad the graphics were on those, and I see how far it is now, and I just have this nostalgia hit, and they don't understand. They don't appreciate. I feel they need to appreciate it. But at the same time, do they really? Because now we can appreciate things that are on the same level. I can now talk to them about Pokemon, and they can understand what I'm talking about. They don't necessarily need to appreciate its origins.
Right.
But I would like it if they knew where it came from, if they understood that I once had all 300 some odd Pokemon memorized, and now I don't know any of the 900, however many there are now.
Well, and it's kind of funny because one of the new features that's coming out with Pokemon Go, people have no clue why this is important to a lot of people who were fans of Pokemon. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The mapping features are incredible. If we improve those can go leagues. Have
you looked at Ingress? Because Ingress is basically that.
Great. Yep.
But it's more because the GPS is more because your guy on Pokemon Go will kind of walk around whatever. Yeah. Your GPS on Ingress, the arrow sits right where you're at.
But it's not just an intelligent mapping. It is incredibly intelligent because it can tell when you're near water and show you water Pokemon. Things like that. It has segmented. This is the burbs. You're gonna get normal type. This is a city. You're at night, so you're gonna get ghost and dark type. Things like that. It adapts, so it knows your environment. And you know what? If people allowed it, even if half of the people allowed it to collect data and improve that, this could help map the world, especially more densely populated areas. This could help driving. This could help automatic driving. This could help just general. People are still getting lost in this day and age.
Oh yeah.
All over the country.
So far.
All over the world. And people don't realize it's a problem when they live in the suburbs or the cities. But it happens. If you help map the country to a point where if somebody, happens to have battery life on their phone, they can whip up Pokemon Go and they can know where to go, that's a possibility. You can help children not get lost. They have a map, they know. They may not know Google Maps, they may not really know how to work it. Pokemon Go, they can figure it out. It's very intuitive.
Right. Mm-hmm. But the update that I was referring to was the update coming up is going to allow you to have one Pokemon out with you, out of its Pokeball.
Oh, that's fun.
And I said it was going to be a Pikachu. And the origin of this is because in the original
Pokemon
show,
Yellow.
Ash always had Pikachu out. He was never in his Pokeball. And the cool part about this is, because I'm a person where I've got my Samsung Watch, and I'm probably going to refuse to get whatever device they're coming out. They're coming out with a device to where you can, track your steps. Well,
there's a lot of pedometers.
I was gonna say my wrists are full.
A Fitbit or something else, yeah.
But it so far it hasn't, there's been no plans to kind of connect it to watches or Fitbits or things like that, where you can actually, that counts towards your Pokemon Go. That I know of.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool because with this Pokemon out, just having him out
makes you.
Well, you get candies for this Pokemon.
Oh.
So the more you walk, and the more candies you get. So you get the Pokemon you started with. I've only seen one what did I get? I get Charizard.
Mm.
I've only caught one since I started playing.
Mhm.
So now I've only got so many candies. But if I could walk, and granted, there's a limit. You only get so many candies a day and stuff
Well,
like
it's
that.
amazing. It encourages you to be more social, and it encourages you to exercise. This is something video games have been trying to figure out for
Years.
several decades. Yes. And I mean, at least the last 30 years. Video games weren't really that big beforehand.
Well, I was gonna say
But
your Nintendo 64. You'd sit there and play it for a couple hours, and then you'd be like, okay, I'm done.
yeah.
But that was also the same system where you
Video
could beat
games-
on it to get it to work.
Exactly. Video games have tried to put these censoring or kind of monitoring capabilities where after 2 hours it'll say, hey, you need to take a break and go for a walk. But they can't force you to do that. You can blow right past those.
Right.
But now, in order to play this game, you gotta go take a walk. And everyone thought VR was gonna be that thing, and they completely passed over augmented reality.
Right.
AR is where it's at. AR is where this is really going to be a thing. And as an AR sales engineer, I am so excited to see AR become more mainstream because that makes my life easier selling it into professional and manufacturing settings.
Right.
Because this is something that spans all ages. The people who are now working full time in a lot of these engineering and sales offices used to play Pokemon or have kids that played Pokemon or somehow can relate to Pokemon Go and AR
Right.
and get that base understanding of what it is and why it's different from VR where you have to wear a headset and it's an entirely different world. Instead, this is the same world. We're just helping, you can see things that aren't really there,
Right.
and it's great teaching technology.
Anyway,
Yep.
we got way, 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 way off topic.
Get
Anyway.
more girls to augmented reality. Okay.
Right. So they're still trying to figure out what they're gonna do with Gilmore Girls, kind of reeling it back in. They don't know if they're gonna have the same theme song and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think it'll be interesting to kind of see where that goes. Moving on, because we have very little time and a lot of topics now to get through. This is one that I really thought was funny. So Steve Harvey apparently has a doppelganger, which I didn't know was possible. You know, those big lips and
Yeah. Exactly.
big thick mustache.
He looks pretty unique.
He does, but yet there's a guy who looks just like him.
I would hate that.
So this guy appeared on Family Feud. His name is Olden Thornton. He is a full-time pastor, and when he was on the show, he said, "I love what I do, but every single day of my life, people come up to me and call me Steve Harvey, Thornton, who believes to be working in a church for 17 years, and said, and I don't even have your money."
Mhm,
And if
that's
you watch,
surreal.
there was actually a clip, and it's really funny because you're watching Steve Harvey look at Steve Harvey and say like, and I don't even have your money, and it's just hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
It was great, and I mean I love Steve Harvey. He's
Yeah.
great, and Family Feud has gotten a lot popular since he started.
Yeah, and unfortunately he can't milk it for what it's worth because he's a pastor. Accepting bribes is not a very recommended thing,
Right.
So disappointing.
He could be a Steve Harvey lookalike.
Yeah, I wonder how many. I mean, you don't want to. If a little kid runs up to you and is like, "Can I have your autograph?" You don't want to disappoint them with
And
their
tell
little
them no.
googly eyes. Be like, "I'm not actually Steve Harvey," because that'll baffle their minds how similar this man looks like him.
Right. So that was a cool little tidbit that I thought I would share. It was just a little one. And then do you know who Cole Grace Moretz is?
Chloe Grace Moretz. Well, I
Chloe,
think you're right,
yeah.
Moretz. I do not recognize the name.
She plays. Here, I got a picture. She plays in the movie. Maybe I don't. No, I don't. She's played in several movies. She's got I think it's 57 movie titles under her belt as an actress. She's
Wow.
also she's only 19. I'm trying to think of some of the movies that she played in. She played in have you seen the new Carrie?
I have. I looked up a picture. I do recognize this actress. She has been in a lot of movies for someone
Yes.
who's only 19.
Yes. She's been in 57 movies. And she's actually got a lot of big projects coming up. Well, that was until recently. She has just now pulled the plug on all of the movies that she is currently working on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because she said, and I quote, let me see. I pulled the plug on all my movies because I want to release who I am and find myself within my roles. I'm realizing that I can slow down.
I mean, she's kind of a bit of a child star. She's a bit of this somebody who's been working so hard. She hasn't really had a normal childhood or a normal life. I think this completely makes sense.
Oh yeah.
I know she probably got to the point where people were putting way too much pressure on her.
Yeah.
That she just wanted the ability to relax, wanted to be able to say, no, I don't want to do this because I want to take a vacation or something along those lines.
Well, and it's kind of like, she's probably just accepting roles for money at this point, and she's not enjoying it anymore.
Yeah.
So
that might be
she's kind of like, whoa, I need to step back and take a look, and I think she needs to just establish herself as an actress.
Well, and as an adult, because she's not. I mean, a lot of people don't really figure out and stick to who they are until they're about the age she is now. But she's never had that time to slow down. She's never had that time to. I mean, when you're an actor or an actress, you're constantly playing different people. You're constantly being told you need to do this because this is for your role. You need to do this. You need to act this way, especially if you're in fame.
Right.
And so I think this is a smart move on her, for her health, for her mental and physical health. She can slow down, she can relax, she can figure out who she is, and then she can do whatever she wants from there. If that's get back into acting, that's what she'll do. If that's go into a different direction, that's what she'll do, and I don't think anyone can blame her for that.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good move, and it's kind of cool to see, because you've had a lot of child stars, and they just go crazy, I mean...
Drugs, yeah, too
Drugs,
much pressure.
and so it's kind of nice to see, somebody who's just kind of like, whoa, I need to slow down, take a step back, I mean, look at Raven-Symoné. She really didn't go that crazy, or at least not publicly. She took a step back from what she was doing. She figured out who she is now. I think she's on The Voice, or not The Voice, The Talk, or The View. She's on The View. She's on The View. And she looks nothing like what she used to look like. But she had that time to figure out who she is. And
I mean, Drew Barrymore stepped out of the limelight because she wanted to pursue a cosmetic line. And she's done a lot of work in business. She's a lot more business savvy than people would have ever given her credit for or taken her seriously as an actress.
And now she's returned to acting, too.
Yeah, well, she had 2 little girls she wanted to raise. She wanted to focus on a different point in life. And there weren't controversies with Drew Barrymore. She is an incredible actress, and now she says, now that my children are a lot older, I can get back to doing something that I loved, but that I considered not right for me at the right time.
Well, look at my celebrity wife, Hilary Duff. Sorry, she was my... But, no, anyway, you look at her, and, she did... Lizzie McGuire, and she was that for years, and then she did a little bit here and there. She did the Cinderella movie and things like that, and then she got married and had kids, and she's like, okay, I'm done. She stopped her music and her acting career.
I mean, not everyone does that. I mean, but if that's what you want to do, you have full rights to do that, no questions.
Right. Well, and it's funny because that kind of took her away from, she came back and everybody's like, oh, who is this? Oh, it's her. So she kind of rebranded herself in that way. And then you've got these, like, Miley Cyrus, the stupidest thing that I heard, when she originally turned over was she was like, I want to get rid of the Hannah Montana. Well, why? That's a fan base that you're going to be growing up with. If you grew up with that fan base.
Yeah, well, on one hand, I can understand why she wants to rebrand. She doesn't. I mean, it's pressure. It's pressure to be goody two shoes all the time. It's pressure to be who that act is.
Well, and
I
that's
understand
fine.
that, but she went way in the other
I was
direction.
Gonna say, but you
just
can,
for the sake of.
But you can do what other people have done. Take a step back for just a year or two. Figure out who you want to be, and then come back.
But she got into drugs and a lot of other stuff that just kind of, I think, made her rebranding not necessarily good. Not a good shift.
Well, and like I watched this one thing on, I think it was on YouTube about, and the title of it was some teen stars who transitioned well. And you look at it, and they had Miley Cyrus on the list. She was like number 1, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
into normal society?
No, like
into $1 million mansions? I don't know.
Like to transition into like.
I wouldn't say so.
Well, like shed their childhood stardom.
Okay, successfully got rid of who they have been branded to be. Yes, did that well and to the benefit of their health and the health of those around them? No.
But see, like they brought up Demi Lovato. Well, yeah, she went on kind of like a little spiral for a while. It was very small, and I didn't even know that it happened. But then she kind of reappeared, and she's better than ever. She rebranded herself very well.
Yeah, I mean, just again, Miley Cyrus can still prove to be more than what we have come to expect of her now. Robert Downey Jr., he was a great young actor. Drugs happened to him, or well, they didn't happen to him. He chose to do drugs and everything, and he went downhill. And look at him now. He rebranded himself. He is now Iron Man.
Right.
And it's incredible.
Well, and it's funny because Demi Lovato, you know, she did music as a Disney Channel star, and
That's
like
right.
I said, she kind of spiraled out of control. But I feel like she did that more behind the scenes. Like nobody really knew that it was happening. She kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a little bit, and then she picked back up. And now she's doing like she did a. I know you're not that big of a country fan, but she just did a song with Brad Paisley, and it was phenomenal. It was an awesome song, and the fact that she's able to cross into, you know, a country genre for, you know, a song and appear like that, you know, says that she's successfully rebranded herself. But, you know, she didn't have to do it as publicly as, you know, Miley Cyrus and a lot of them.
Well, there's this point where there's so many actors and actresses that fall into drugs and fall into bad ways, and people are always told, oh, once you're in that line, there's no coming back, and that is never true. I mean, Korn, I know I brought him up earlier and what he named all of his children.
Right.
He used to do drugs, and now he has an incredible breathing problem. And so between each of his songs in a concert, he has to go to a machine, and I believe it was medically related. I believe the reasons was because of the drugs and the smoking. He has to go to this machine, and he has to take in air, and he has to breathe for a few minutes, and then he can get back into it. And he did amazing in concert. But every once in a while I would look and I would think, what is he doing? And he's not giving up, but he's still doing some crazy things, but he recognizes that because of the lifestyle, he led to the point where he's going to have to give up his dream earlier than he wants to.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are consequences to those actions, but they are not inevitable. You can, by changing certain things, by rebranding, by accepting that, okay, I messed up, let's change gears, this isn't what I want. You can do that. You can do that. It has been proven. But, you know, if you don't want to, if you want to keep going down the path you're at, it's going to be tough for them. And it's so sad to see someone who was so respected, especially Miley Cyrus, leading people into thinking that drugs are cool. And again, and all this stuff that their programs and so many other programs have spent so much money and so much time trying to explain that it's not cool. All of these people who have rebranded themselves after drugs, Robert Downey Jr. and everyone, they will never tell you drugs are cool. They do not want anyone to suffer what they have suffered.
Well, yeah, and then like, yeah, they'll go to a party and whatnot, but they don't go and party.
Yes. There's a difference between drinking and getting drunk, you know.
But no, anyway, moving on. I think that's a good move for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because 19 is kind of a pivotal point when you're trying to figure out who you are, where you want to go. I mean, I didn't even know what I wanted to do until I was 20, 22, or 21.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, you know, you need that time to figure out who you are. But anyway, moving on. So apparently Tom Hanks and his wife are having a squabble because two of their two newest movies came out on the same weekend.
Oh, no.
So
who's better?
Well, Tom Hanks and his wife, I'm trying to remember her name. It's Wilson something. Or something Wilson.
Probably something like that.
Anyway, they've been married for 28 years, and her movie, Brother Nature, and his movie, Captain Sully, came out on the same weekend.
Ah.
And they were quoted saying, we're battling it out. He's got Sully, I've got Brother Nature. Two completely different movies, though. Wilson explained, like maybe you see Sully and then you see, or you do a later show of Brother Nature or vice versa. So that's kind of a cool thing to do. What do you think?
I think it's kind of hilarious because they're on completely different platforms, like she said. They're completely different movies. But, you know, If you want to see something serious, and then that just kind of takes you through an emotional loophole, and you need to lighten up a bit, go see Brother Nature. Or if you're the other way and you want to see a comedy and then a tragedy, or not really a tragedy, a hero story.
Right.
Yeah, that's really funny, and I'm glad, they've been married 28 years. You hear about all these film stars that get divorced all the time. It's nice that they're light spirits out of it. It's cute.
Yeah, it is. One cool thing that I got sent today when I was at school was a video of Tom Hanks on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And it like made my childhood because they ended up doing Woody talking to Dory.
Oh.
And what it was is he's like, have you ever had kids come up to you and go, "This Woody, that's what," like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's like, okay, what I want you to do is everybody close their eyes.
Oh.
And so everybody closed their eyes, and then he started talking like Woody, she started talking like Dory, and it was phenomenal. It was so funny.
That would be amazing.
And then he's like, hey, could we black out the screen for a second? She's like, yeah, I think we could do that. And then the producers, you could tell, were like, no. And they're like, she's like, no, apparently we can't do that because if the screen goes black, people change the channel. So we can't do that.
Okay.
But then he goes on. But it was really cool. So I'll post that that video on our Topic Talks Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you can see that, because it was really cool. It actually made my childhood because he was.
That's adorable.
They were like talking about his hat, and she's like, "What hat?" And like, they were able to combine the two personalities.
Yep.
But they were also talking about how much work it is to do voice work.
Oh yeah.
Because you're doing the same line maybe 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
Then you move on to the next line, and you do that another 50 times.
Yeah, and you have to get it just right, where you hit that character's niche, exactly what the producers want.
Well,
and it's very difficult. I'm glad that voice acting is becoming more of a recognized profession, especially since it's leaking its way into storylines and video games a lot more.
Right.
It's becoming it has a larger demographic, and it has a larger demand now.
Right. One cool part that they were talking about is they were talking about how they got called in for just like little noises.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both like, wouldn't you have that by now?
Yeah.
They're like, we just spent all this time in a recording studio, and
you can't clip it from something
you call
else.
me back from, for or like a falling noise or something. And they were talking about how absurd that was, and
oh, jeez.
But it was kind of cool, like them talking about the experience of, it's fun, but it's a lot of work because you say the same thing 50 times.
Yep.
And Tom Hanks was talking about how he does his Woody voice with a very like tight diaphragm.
Oh, that's gonna be
exhausting. So after 50 hours in the studio, or 10 hours in the studio doing, Woody, he's like, my diaphragm hurts.
Yeah.
Because he's tightens it up so that he can. But they were talking about a little so that was kind of cool. And like you said, voice acting is a profession. It's actually part of the profession that I'm going in.
Yeah.
Kind of, because you don't think about it, but the people who do commercials do voice acting.
Well, yeah, when you depend on your voice, you depend on a certain set of skills that people don't really recognize because they think, oh, you're just being you. And it's not that at all. You have to put on a persona. You have to curb your voice in certain ways. And, I mean, so many people didn't know that women played a lot of the voice characters for male characters in cartoons. But that's through voice inflection, and that's a lot of work that people have to do. And can you imagine sitting and being told, I need you to say this 50 times? That would get really boring.
Well, and I was going to say, even creating a commercial, like, you're not going to say it 50 times, but you're going to say it about 10 times.
Yeah,
I mean, in school, I've had to do commercials, and I'm sitting there, and I say the same line 10 times, and I'm like, oh, that was crappy, let's do it again. And that's me throwing it out and saying, let's do it again. And, so I do it again, and I'll listen to it. No, it still wasn't what I was looking for, so I throw it out and try it again. So it's really funny, because the commercials that you hear are probably like take number 50.
Oh, jeez.
Because you're going through and you try each line, and they have you have a script in front of you, and most of the time the script that you have to say it word for word. So if it's an A, you can't go eh.
Yep.
You can't do an eh instead of an A.
The science behind phonetics and how we speak and everything is very fascinating. And I don't have time to get into how our language is more similar to German than the Romance languages like French and Spanish. But there is an incredible science behind it that these people need to know. because they need to be able to make all of those noises and all of this range of noises, and that's how they can do multilingual characters a lot better.
Well, and it's also like I said, for me, doing stuff for like commercials, I have to actually sit there and think about what I'm saying, and like the words that come out of my mouth have to be the ones that I know. I can't say like a new thing. I have to say a new thing that's coming out. So I have to read that script like verbatim.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh well, I missed that, so let's do it again. So it's like
can't have an accent unless it's scripted.
Yeah. So like this. 30-second commercial could have been like 2 hours of material
and work.
And you just keep throwing it out and throwing it out and throwing it out, and then you finally get that was great. Now let's move on. Line number 2 after an hour,
Yeah.
But it's really cool that it's actually, and like I said, it's not nearly as much work as actual voice acting, like, cartoons and stuff like that, but it's still a lot of work, You're sitting in front of a microphone, in front of editing software with a you got a microphone, editing software, and you've got an audio board in front of you, and you're like, okay, well, let's record this and see how it goes. Let's record this and see how it goes. And kind of they're doing the same thing, except they have producers going, no, let's do it again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not satisfied with that one. Do it again. Yeah.
Well, and
that's gotta be rough.
Right, and they're like, you've got somebody sitting in there saying, no, say it like this. And then you say it again. And they're like, that was great, but we need to do it like this. That was great, but
yeah,
and then also the kind of the hardest part for people who are doing voice acting for especially cartoons is, they're looking at pictures of their characters. They don't know the motions of their characters yet.
That's true.
They don't know how they're gonna move. So they have to create this emotion by just standing there. And I'm one of those people, and my girlfriend calls me dorky for doing it. But I'll go on YouTube and I'll find like videos of recording sessions.
They're very animated.
Of the actors.
Yep.
And they're very, very like hands-on. Like when they're screaming, they're using their hands.
The gentleman who played Puss in Boots in Shrek, I cannot remember his name.
Antonio Banderas?
Yes, Antonio Banderas. He is one of the most animated voice actors I have seen, and he just nailed that character so well. If you watch him do his voice acting, you know it's Antonio Banderas, but you also know this is Puss in Boots. This is exactly the character you're expecting, the fluid motion and everything. He did such a great job with the voice acting, and he had to do a lot of retakes too.
Well, and if you watch those, like, and I've noticed this too, watching these, they've got pictures of the characters in like the drawings and the sketches and of all the different characters.
Try to imagine what a cat would speak English as.
Right.
It's rough.
But it's like thinking about it, these people don't know how their characters are gonna move. It's kind of like the girl that played Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. She's like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, and she said, the more she thought about it, and then she had that song number. She's like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, and then she got up to it and she just did it, and it was, she's like, I just kind of channeled in my character that I had developed. And it just happened, and it happened really great. And she was talking about singing the song that's in the movie.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're there with an orchestra, and they're playing, and sometimes you're recording it.
If you're doing that all separately, that's tough, especially if you don't hear the background music, if you don't really know what it's going to turn out to be.
Well, and I was gonna say I watched Tangled, like One for Tangled, and the girl was played by Mandy Moore, and so you have who's a singer. So I'm watching her record this. So she's recording the singing, like they're playing the music over the speakers, and she's singing to the lyrics. But then it also shows her in front of an orchestra, singing to that too in front of a microphone. So it makes me wonder, how many times do they record this, and in what settings do they actually choose?
A lot, probably.
So it's one of those things where, like you said, I'm very glad that voice acting is, being kind of accepted now and recognized, rather than just kind of like, they talk on a microphone and use their voice. Well, that's not really it.
Well, you got to get a nice microphone. You have to get good audio editing quality. There's a lot of work that goes into editing, and I think YouTube is really where a lot of this started, to video and audio and the importance and difficulty that all of these things really are. It's a job. And people are finally starting to give that more credit as they see more and more the production that goes into these
I was going to say
things.
broadcasting.
Yeah,
I got into broadcasting
especially,
school, and I didn't realize how much behind the scenes work. You know, a
It's a
DJ, you just sit
lot.
there, think, they talk in between songs, and that's it. Or they get to pick their music. No, their
Mhm.
music is laid out for them, but they're the ones playing the commercials. They
Yep.
play, they keep the time, they do all that, and
Mhm.
I mean, they're talking into $400 or $500 microphones, even more.
Yeah.
And like the microphone I'm looking to get, so when I do voice work, because these ones are great, but they were cheap, and they work great for this, but, if I want to do professional voice recording, I'm going to need one of those $400 microphones.
Yeah, no, I have a friend who does cinematic YouTube videos, and he recommended a microphone to me, and I ended up getting a $200 microphone for recording music and recording different kind of sessions because I was working a lot with him at the time and a lot of
Right.
stuff like that. And it was a great microphone, but I realize now how much better microphones there are now. It opened my eyes to a whole different world of sound quality.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but it's one of those things where people don't realize what it is and how much work it takes. So on that note, we're like a little bit over our 2 hours, but we just talk a lot. So
Lots of good information to discuss.
there was a lot of good information to discuss. I just want to thank you, Michaela, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been great. Mark wasn't able to make it today, so it was awesome that you were able to be here.
Mhm.
And actually, it's changed a lot since you were, because when you
Yeah.
were on the last time,
It
you
was
would call
earlier
in,
this year, yeah.
and it was like 1 hour show and 2 parts.
Yeah, and my poor audio quality.
Actually, you had pretty good audio
I did.
quality.
It was pretty decent. Okay, that's
It
good.
was pretty
Good
decent
to know.
because you had that fancy microphone.
Yeah, exactly. It all pays off.
No, anyway, so thank you, and I would love to have you back anytime you're in the area. And once again, I want to give a thank to everybody out there. Every episode I get, a whole bunch of views live, and then after the fact, I get a whole bunch of views after that. So it's just going up and up, and
Thank you all for your time.
yeah, you get to sit and listen to us talk for 2 hours. So
Hey, they might learn something.
huh? Well, anyway, on that note, I'm gonna sign off. So I'm Aaron Klingesmith signing off for Topic Talks. See you next week.